Chapter 945. Chanyang Zhu Yunkong's face darkened. He looked back at Flame City, the first city completely forged from tungsten alloy on the Tianyuan continent, as well as the over 100,000 members of the Flame Mercenaries. His eyes were filled with pain. The reason why he had been able to break through to Saint Ruler and return to the Tianyuan continent was all because his great-grandson had risked his life to search for the ambergris grass in the sea of illusory stars. If it were not for the ambergris grass, it would have been impossible for him to return to the Tianyuan continent from Three Saint Island. He would probably have been forced to silently await the end of his life on Three Saint Island. He would not have been able to break through to Saint Ruler. As a result, Chanyang Zhu Yunkong felt deep gratitude toward his great-grandson. Yet now, his great-grandson's Flame City had actually been taken away right before his very eyes. This made Chanyang Zhu Yunkong feel extremely pained and uncomfortable. This was because the city was no ordinary city. Instead, it was forged from tungsten alloy, which was 10 times more valuable than purple coins. Its status on the Tianyuan continent was equivalent to the 7 capital cities. "Konger, come back with us. We can't interfere with the matters here," Chanyang Zhu Yunkong gently said. Her emotions were extremely mixed. How could she not understand her son's pain? She was extremely grateful to Jianshan as well, because it was Jianshan who had reunited their family. However, the matter before them had exceeded the limits of their abilities. Yu Yu and Bai Lian, who stood beside Chanyang Zhu Yunkong, were filled with deep sorrow. 2 clear streams of tears flowed uncontrollably from their eyes. The 2 of them knew that the fact that Flame City had been taken away could not be changed now. However, the city was Jianshan's property. It was a mission Jianshan had given them before he left. The 2 of them had spent several years of blood, sweat, and effort on the city. They had basically used up all the wealth Jianshan had left behind and mobilized over 100,000 people to construct it painstakingly. However, something so tragic had happened as soon as the city had been completed, so the 2 of them felt extremely pained. They were filled with an intense reluctance to resign themselves to this fate. They had sacrificed so much, but in the end, it was all for someone else. This was unacceptable to them, and they couldn't accept it. "Jianshan, I'm sorry. I failed to live up to your expectations. I couldn't protect Flame City," Yu Yu sobbed softly. Her heart was filled with grief and helplessness. Wang Yifeng, Little Fatty, Dugu Feng, Yun Zheng, Seniorin, and the experts of the Flame Mercenaries all gathered around Yu Yu and Bai Lian. All of them had gloomy expressions and were in low spirits. There was not the slightest bit of fighting spirit left on their faces. It was obvious that they already knew the fate of Raging Flame City. Chanyang Zhu Yunkong hesitated for quite a while before letting out a long sigh in the end. He said, "All right, I'll leave, but I'll be taking everyone related to Jianshan with me." At that moment, Chanyang Zhu Yunkong seemed to have aged significantly. This matter had been decided by the 10 protector clans. No one on the continent had the power to interfere. With a wave of his sleeve, Chanyang Zhu Yunkong used his abilities as a saint ruler to sweep up Yu Yu and the others. He slowly flew up and stood beside Chanyang Zhu Yinshao. He then looked down and said, "Bai Hai, Jita Tai, come back to Chanyang Prefecture with us first." Bai Hai, Jita Tai hesitated slightly before flying up as well. They planned on leaving with Chanyang Zhu Yunkong because the 2 of them could vaguely guess that the people of the Extinguishing Alliance would never let them go if they stayed. Seeing how all the important people around Jianshan had been taken away by Chanyang Zhu Yunkong, the king's face immediately became ugly. He yelled out, "Hold on. Chanyang Zhu Yunkong, you're a part of Chanyang Prefecture, so you can obviously leave. However, they're not part of the protector clans, so they can't leave." In his heart, he had already given the order to kill everyone around Jianshan. He did not want to let a single one of them go. So how could he let them leave so easily? This was because only by doing so could he make Jianshan suffer for the rest of his life and vent his anger. Chanyang Zhu Yunkong's face sank, and a cold light immediately flickered through his eyes. However, before he could say anything, Chanyang Zhu Yunshao's voice rang out. Since when did you have the right to tell me who I want to take away from Chanyang Prefecture? If you dare to spout any more nonsense, don't blame me for bullying you. Chanyang Zhu Yunxiao's eyes were sharp as he spoke with an extremely stern voice. He was unable to hide his anger. As a great elder of the Protector Chanyang clan, Chanyang Zhu Yunxiao had heard about this matter even though he lived in Lore City. He knew that everything that had happened today was because of Liubi Wang and his son. As a result, his hatred for Bai Hai and his son was extremely intense. Bai Hai immediately shut his mouth when he heard Chanyang Zhu Yunxiao's rebuke. He did not dare to say another word. Although Bai Hai was conceited and had the support of the Holy Emperor, he did not dare to directly challenge the dignity of a great elder of a Protector clan. Bai Hai fell silent. He clenched and unclenched his fists before clenching them again. He was filled with reluctance. Yu and the other important people had been taken away. His plan to take revenge on Jianshan would not be able to be completed successfully, which made him extremely reluctant. Yu looked at the city below with tears in her eyes and said, "Since you want this city, you can have it." The Flame Mercenaries surrender. Now, the Flame Mercenaries could only surrender. Any resistance was futile before the Extinguishing Alliance's army of several million and over 20 saint rulers. Surrender? Do you think it's that easy? Kill everyone from the Extinguishing Alliance. Don't leave a single one alive, Bai Hai ordered with bloodshot eyes. His face was extremely vicious. Immediately, cries rang out once again. The army of the Extinguishing Alliance immediately surged toward Flame City like a flood. Sigh. The Holy Emperor from the Pure Heart Pavilion gently sighed. He gently extended a finger, and the energy in the surroundings immediately began to surge, condensing into a wall that was several hundred meters tall and several kilometers long. It blocked the army of the Extinguishing Alliance, preventing them from approaching the city. Since the Flame Mercenaries have already surrendered, why do you have to kill them all? It's not like they've committed any unforgivable crimes. All of you, stop, the expert from the Pure Heart Pavilion gently said. His voice rang out in everyone's ears. His voice was filled with peace, and it actually calmed down the violent and bloodthirsty emotions in the hearts of the people below. The army of mercenaries from the Extinguishing Flame Alliance stopped. After a moment of hesitation, they all returned. Everyone knew that since the people from the 10 great Protector clans had spoken, even their commanders could only obediently obey. They did not dare to disobey. God damn it, bastard. Hasn't your Pure Heart Pavilion never interfered with the matters of the outside world? Why are you meddling in other people's business? Bai Hai constantly cursed inside, but he did not dare to say it out loud. Even if he was 100 times more courageous, he would not dare to curse the Holy Emperor of the Pure Heart Pavilion right in front of him. In the end, Chanyang Zhu Yunxiao left through a space gate with a group of people. They did not return to the Protector clans. Instead, they returned to the Chanyang Prefecture in Lore City. The members of the Flame Mercenaries all left the city in low spirits. A portion of them stayed behind, preparing to travel 100,000 kilometers to the Kingdom of Jessen, while a portion of them left the Flame Mercenaries and went their separate ways. The Flame Mercenaries had suffered a heavy blow after what had happened. Although they did not disband, they were nowhere near as powerful as before. Flame City had been taken over by the Extinguishing Alliance and had been renamed Extinguishing Flame City. It had become a famous city on the continent that could rival the 7 great capital cities. Although Bai Hai had destroyed the Flame Mercenaries, he was not happy at all. This was because he had not managed to kill a single important member of Jinshan's side. They had either been taken away by the Grand Elder of Mercenary City or by the people of Chanyang Prefecture. Very soon, the matter of Flame City spread across the entire continent like wildfire, causing a great uproar. Although the Flame Mercenaries had been defeated in the end, their reputation was extremely great, far greater than that of the Extinguishing Alliance in Extinguishing Flame City. This was because the Flame Mercenaries were the first mercenary group on the continent that could draw out the Protector clans. Just this point alone was enough to shake up the entire continent. In a quiet valley near the border of the Cross Mountains, An old man in simple robes sat on a bed with his eyes closed. He seemed like an old monk meditating. Suddenly, the old man slowly opened his eyes. He gently sighed. It's good that they've been robbed. It's good that they've been robbed. After this matter, I think little Fatty will understand the importance of strength even more clearly. If you want to protect your home and family on the Tian Yuan continent, you need to possess great strength. Strength so great that no one dares to provoke you. Jianshun is already in the sea realm. I wonder what his strength is like now. He still needs to deal with the matters of Flame City himself. I hope the day when he possesses the strength to fend off the Protector clans won't be too long. I've almost run out of vegetables again. I need to plant some more, the old man murmured. The old man muttered in a low voice. He picked up the hoe in the corner and walked out of the door. In the blink of an eye, for years passed. A fist-sized golden tower hovered in the air within the divine hall of the 8 wastelands in the sea realm. Jianshun sat in the center of the huge hall within the artifact space. The sword spirits appeared above his head, constantly refining monster cores and god-tier crystals into the purest energy and channeling it into Jianshun's body. The mountain of high-class monster cores and god-tier crystals around Jianshun had all vanished. They had been refined into pure energy, becoming powerful chaotic force. Jianshun's chaotic Niden slowly revolved in his dantian. Strands of hazy chaotic force revolved around it. The chaotic Niden had already become the size of an adult's fist. When the last monster core was refined, Jianshun finally opened his eyes slowly. Uncontainable joy filled his face as he murmured, I'm just one step away from reaching the 3rd layer of the chaotic body. With that, Jianshun waved his hand, and a 10-meter-wide god-tier crystal flew out of his space ring. It landed heavily in the spacious hall and produced a heavy thud. The crystal was the throne that Jianshun had obtained on the 1st floor of the hall. Jianshun leapt onto the throne with great agility. He sat down and continued to refine the crystal. P.S. The 1st chapter is here. The 2nd chapter will come a little later. I recommend 2 more books, The World King and the Dragonblood War God. Extra. Double 12, December 11th, 2012 to December 13th, 2012. During this period of time, if you use online banking, Alipay, and Alipay to top up, you'll get a 20% discount on all purchases above 30 yuan, including 30 yuan. Note that it's 20% discount, not 20% starting. The more you top up, the more you earn. You only need 80 yuan to top up with 100 yuan face value. Now is not the time to lose. What are you waiting for? Let's go. Warm reminder. After topping up, you'll get a refund. For example, if you top up with 30 yuan, you'll get 3,600 kilobytes. The 600 kilobytes will be sent to your account half an hour after topping up. Chapter 946. The huge throne forged from God tier crystal rapidly shrank. Under the refinement of the sword spirits and Jianshun, it turned into extremely pure energy that entered Jianshun's body. In the end, it was assimilated by Jianshun's chaotic force, becoming a part of it. Now that Jianshun's chaotic body had begun to take shape, he could refine it into chaotic force as long as he had enough energy. The existence of the sword spirits assisted him in refining the energy even faster. As the chaotic force rapidly increased, the chaotic Niden in Jianshun's dantian rapidly swelled as well. It reached its limit very soon. Boom! Suddenly, a violent rumble rang out from Jianshun's dantian. It was extremely loud, where it could even be heard from the outside. The chaotic Niden in his dantian had shattered, turning into a large mass of chaotic force that rapidly rampaged through his body. Under the support of the chaotic force, Jianshun's body seemed to become an inflating balloon. It began to expand at a visible rate, becoming a 10-meter-tall giant very soon. Chaotic force rampaged wildly within his body. It was like an overflowing flood, rapidly surging through his body. Jianshun frowned slightly. The intense pain that he had not felt in a very long time assaulted his soul once again, mercilessly destroying his nerves. Jianshun had already experienced the breakthrough of the chaotic body once, so he was very familiar with it. He immediately began to use the method recorded in the Azulite Sword Law to control the circulation of chaotic force in his body. Gradually, the chaotic force in Jinshin's body rapidly became pure, while its quantity rapidly decreased at an unbelievable rate. At this moment, the chaotic force was undergoing its third metamorphosis, changing from quantity to quality. As the chaotic force rapidly strengthened, the balance between the chaotic force and the chaotic body was gradually broken. The chaotic body was immediately damaged as heart-wrenching pain filled every inch of his body, causing Jinshin to spasm uncontrollably. Jinshin gritted his teeth. Not only did the chaotic force not slow down, it even sped up. He endured the increasing pain without making a single sound. The sword spirits did not stop either. They continued to refine the huge throne, providing enough energy for Jinshin's chaotic force to evolve. Jinshin's chaotic force rapidly decreased as his body slowly shrank. He returned to his normal size very soon, but he was now covered in blood. It was blood that had been squeezed out of his pores. Every single drop of blood pulsed with powerful energy, enough to easily kill an Earth Saint Master. Jinshin's chaotic body was constantly being destroyed and repaired. Every time it was repaired, some strengthened chaotic force would fuse into his body. Not only was his chaotic force increasing, but his chaotic body was rapidly strengthening as well. The metamorphosis of the chaotic force and chaotic body lasted for half a month before coming to an end. Only then did the chaotic force within Jinshin's body calm down. The surging chaotic force had vanished, and a thumb-sized chaotic Niden hovered in his dantian. Strands of powerful chaotic force slowly revolved around it. Jinshin's clothes had already been reduced to dust. He sat naked on the throne that had shrunk to half its original size. The blood on his body had vanished, returning to Jinshin's body through his pores. Jinshin slowly opened his eyes and suddenly stood up from the throne. Immediately, a tremendous presence radiated from his body, wreaking havoc in the hall like a hurricane, causing it to constantly tremble. At that moment, Jinshin seemed like a primordial beast that had awakened from its slumber. The presence that radiated from him was enough to make the world tremble. Congratulations on reaching the third layer of the chaotic body, Master. The sword spirits congratulated Jinshin at the same time. Jinshin clenched his fists. He could not help but smile as he sensed the chaotic force within him that had become much more powerful. The Holy Emperor's third heavenly layer. The third layer of the chaotic body has actually allowed me to go from the seventh heavenly layer to the Holy Emperor's third heavenly layer, directly skipping the eighth heavenly layer, the ninth heavenly layer, the Holy Emperor's first heavenly layer, and the Holy Emperor's second heavenly layer, Jinshin murmured to himself. His voice was filled with uncontainable excitement. With a flip of his hand, Jinshin's saint armament appeared. Surging chaotic force poured into the weapon, immediately causing it to shine with a dazzling black light. A destructive presence filled the hall, causing it to constantly tremble. The Holy Emperor's fifth heavenly layer. Now that I've used the saint armament, it's only increased my battle prowess by 2 heavenly layers. Jinshin murmured to himself. Some dissatisfaction appeared on his face. When he was at the 7th heavenly layer, he could unleash the battle prowess of the Holy Emperor's 3rd heavenly layer when he used the Saint armament, which was an increase of 5 whole levels. Now that he had reached the 3rd heavenly layer, the Saint armament was only able to increase his battle prowess by 2 whole levels. It had been halved. The greater the strength, the greater the difference between each level. Perhaps that's exactly why my battle prowess has increased by 2 whole levels. I just wonder what level my strength will reach if I use the Saint armament. Jinshin murmured to himself. He quickly dismissed his thoughts and took out a new set of clothes from his space ring. Afterward, he left the hall where he had been in seclusion for several years. Jinshin did not pay any attention to the throne that had shrunk to 5 meters. He planned on refining it into chaotic force in the future. Right now, he needed to immediately search for the Saint armament and stop Tisniak from controlling the divine hall of the 8 wastelands. As soon as he left the hall, Jinshin saw newbies with a single glance. Newbie's strength had increased by a lot during the past few years of seclusion. He had completely refined the essence of the old snake. Not only had he reached the Holy Emperor's level, but he had also reached the second heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor. Newbie's eyes narrowed when he saw Jianshan. He cried out, "Jianshan, what level of cultivation have you reached now? I can't see through you, and I can actually feel pressure from you. Heavens, has your strength surpassed mine in just 5 short years? I've reached the third heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor's level of strength now." Jianshan smiled. "What? The third heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor? How is that possible? In just 5 short years, you've gone from the 7th heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor to the 3rd heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor. That's just unbelievable." Newbie stared at Jianshan in shock. Disbelief flooded his face. He struggled to accept Jianshan's rapid increase in strength. In the past few years, Newbie had completely relied on the essence of the old snake, which was why his strength had increased so quickly. However, Jianshan had actually surpassed him through his own cultivation. This had an extremely great impact on him. "Jianshan, you're only 30 right now, aren't you? A 30-year-old Holy Emperor. If news of this spreads, it'll cause a great uproar, whether it's the Sea Realm or the Tian Yuan continent." Newbie sighed emotionally. The Tian Yuan continent. Jianshan immediately became absent-minded when he heard the Tian Yuan continent. Reminiscence filled his eyes, but he returned to his senses very soon. Determination filled his eyes once again, and he said, "Newbies, let's go. We can't give Tesniak too much time." Jianshan and Newbies left the artifact space and reappeared on the 9th floor. Amagami continued to hover nearby, glowing with a faint red light. The Saint artifact turned into a golden streak of light and disappeared into Jianshan's forehead. Jianshan glanced at Amagami nearby, but he did not pay too much attention to her. He was trapped in the Divine Hall right now, so whether or not he could make it out was a problem. He was in no mood to think about anything else. Newbies glanced at the core of the Divine Hall on the ceiling and said, "Looks like the Divine Hall of the 8 Wastelands isn't that easy to control. Tesniak still hasn't gained complete control over the 8 Wastelands. Jianshan, should we try and see if we can get through the door of the core right now? Our strength may have increased, but it's nowhere near enough to get through the door of the core. Our priority is to find the Emperor armament. With the Emperor armament in hand, I'll be able to unleash even more strength. At that time, we'll have a greater chance of getting through the door of the core," Jianshan said with a heavy voice. He was extremely stern. "All right then, let's go find the Emperor's body," said Newbies. Jianshan and Newbies immediately left the 9th floor and made their way to the 8th. The two of them constantly observed their surroundings along the way, searching for possible traces of the Emperor armament. Very soon, the two of them returned to the 8th floor. The formation on the 8th floor had already vanished, but the 9 blood-red pillars still stood there. Just as they set foot on the 8th floor, the 9 pillars immediately began to glow with a surging red light. The formation had been activated once again. However, this time, Jianshan and Newbies remained the same as before. Jianshan flipped his hand, and the Saint armament immediately appeared. He directly swung it, and a powerful sword chi shot toward one of the pillars with a devastating presence. Boom! The blood-red pillar loudly shattered. With the destruction of one of the pillars, the formation was immediately destroyed. The blood-red light in the sky slowly began to disperse. Before the formation had been completely formed, it had been destroyed by Jianshan's strike. Jianshan put away the Saint armament and glanced around. He frowned slightly and murmured, "I actually can't find any traces of the Emperor armament. Where did it go? We've searched from the 9th floor to the 8th floor, but we haven't found any traces at all. Has the Emperor armament disappeared?" Newbies frowned slightly and asked himself in confusion. Jianshan pondered for a while before looking at the tunnel to the 7th floor. He said, "Let's head down. The Emperor armament should be extremely familiar with this palace. I think it must have used some method we don't know about to leave and run outside." Chapter 9:47. Jianshan and Newbies continued down, but the path to the 7th floor had already been blocked by an extremely tough stone door. The material of the door was the same as the one on the 2nd floor. It took several dozen 9th heavenly layer saint rulers and over 20 people to use Tion level saint techniques to break through. I wonder if I can break through this door with my current strength, Jian-Chen murmured. Afterwards, he took out the saint armament from his space ring. Chaotic force surged from his body into the saint armament, and immediately, the saint armament shone with a black light. Its destructive presence filled the entire hall. Newbie's face changed slightly. He could not help but take a few steps back. He was secretly surprised. Jian-Chen was already more powerful than him, even without the saint weapon. Now that he had used it, he actually felt a tremendous pressure from the presence he gave off. The current Jian-Chen actually gave newbies a feeling that he was undefeatable. In just a few short years, Jian-Chen's strength has already reached such a level. With his rate of improvement, he'll probably become a holy emperor in less than 100 years, or even just a few decades, newbies thought. Jian-Chen's gaze sharpened. He fused with his sword as he stabbed the saint weapon at the center of the stone door with a lightning-like speed. Boom! With a loud boom, a violent shockwave of energy immediately spread out in all directions. The shockwave struck the walls of the palace and caused the palace to tremble slightly. Jian-Chen's attack was equivalent to the attack of a 5th heavenly layer saint king, but it failed to smash through the stone door in a single stroke. The tip of the saint weapon had already stabbed into the stone door, causing tiny cracks to appear around it. They spread across the entire door. Jian-Chen forcefully pulled the saint weapon out of the stone door and struck the stone door with a tremendous amount of power. The stone door began to gently tremble. The cracks became denser and denser, thicker and thicker. Afterward, Jian-Chen's 3rd, 4th, and 5th strikes followed closely behind. After 5 powerful attacks, he finally broke through the stone door. The tough stone door had already been reduced to rubble that shot into the air. Jian-Chen stood there with his sword sheathed. He could not help but faintly smile. If he had come across this stone door a few years ago, it would have been impossible for him to get through it. Even if he worked together with several dozen 9th heavenly layer saint rulers and over 20 people using their heaven-level battle movement techniques, it would still take them a very long time to get through it. But now, he only needed 5 strikes to get through the stone door easily. He was extremely satisfied with his current strength. Jian-Chen and newbies made their way down to the 7th floor. Several years ago, they would have to be on tenterhooks with every step they took, but now they could move freely. They did not fear any of the formations hidden in the surroundings because they could no longer trap the two of them. They could not even stop them from advancing. Jian-Chen only needed a single strike to get through them. Jian-Chen and newbies made their way down from the 9th floor. They searched for traces of emperor armaments everywhere and arrived on the 1st floor very soon. They directly made their way out through the main door. The barrier within the palace was still in place, enveloping the entire palace. Outside lay the corpses of some sea race powerhouses. Their bodies had almost dried up long ago. As for the mountain of murderers' corpses, they had all disappeared. Jian-Chen and newbies worked together to break through the barrier. They created a crack and made their way out. Boom, 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 boom. As soon as the two of them emerged from the barrier, a heavy sound rang out from up ahead, accompanied by a powerful pulse of energy. Jian-Chen and newbies' eyes immediately lit up. They had already guessed that the disturbance must have been caused by the Emperor armament. It was still constantly attacking the main door of the Divine Hall. It really is like that. The Emperor armament really has made its way outside. Jian-Chen's eyes burned with desire as he immediately flew in the direction of the sound. Since the palace was enveloped by the barrier, it had the ability to block out sound. As a result, Jian-Chen and newbies did not notice the disturbance outside when they were in the palace. Only now that they had emerged from a barrier did they hear the great disturbance caused by the Emperor armament. Jian-Chen and newbies both flew through the Divine Hall as quickly as they could. As they rapidly drew closer, several loud beast roars gradually rang out in their ears. Very soon, Jian-Chen and newbies arrived at the main door of the Divine Hall. They saw the 30-meter-long Emperor armament hovering several dozen meters in the air constantly attacking the door. Below, several beasts at the fifth heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor furiously roared out. They constantly opened their mouths to bite at the Emperor armament, but they were all dodged by the artifact spirit. They did not touch the Emperor armament at all, not a single one of them. The beasts were covered in vicious wounds. Their blood had already dyed them red. Clearly, they had been injured by the Emperor armament. Emperor armament, I've finally found you. Jianshin was ravished with joy. Chaotic force circulated within him, covering his entire body. He pushed the defenses of the chaotic body to the limit before using the illusory flash. He turned into a blur as he shot toward the Emperor armament. The Emperor armament had clearly noticed Jianshin as well. It immediately stopped attacking the door and turned the tip of its sword. It turned into a blur and actually fled into the distance with lightning-like speed. In the end, it broke through the barrier around the palace and disappeared into it. Where do you think you're going? Jianshin bellowed out. He turned into a blur and immediately chased after the Emperor armament. He crossed several kilometers in the blink of an eye and widened the crack in the barrier that was about to close with the Emperor armament. Afterward, he entered the barrier as well, vanishing from the palace. Jianshin pursued the Emperor armament all the way from the first floor to the ninth. As soon as he reached the ninth floor, the Emperor armament nimbly dodged Jianshin's claws before charging back to the first floor, breaking through the barrier and returning to the Divine Hall. Jianshin shot out from the crack in the barrier with lightning-like speed. Afterward, a golden streak of light shot out from his forehead and landed in his hand. He had already taken out the Saint artifact. Jianshin tossed the Saint artifact into the air and said, "Artifact spirit, hide here. Once the Emperor armament flies out, immediately find a way to store it in the space." With that, Jianshin ignored the Saint artifact and continued his pursuit. The Saint artifact hovered in the air as its golden light gradually vanished. It rapidly shrank as well, turning into a thumb-sized tower in the end. It landed on the ground, using a corpse as cover. Jianshin chased after the Emperor armament as he fled through the Divine Hall. Due to the illusory flash, he left behind a long blur. The powerful Class 8 feral beasts chased after him relentlessly as they constantly roared out. When the Emperor armament flew back into the palace, the Saint artifact hidden in the darkness finally took action. The golden tower became several dozen meters tall in a single moment as it shone with a dazzling golden light. A door suddenly appeared in the path that the Emperor armament had to pass through. It wanted to wait for the Emperor armament to enter by itself. However, things did not go as it wished. At this critical moment, the Emperor armament came to a halt. It had actually forcefully stopped and did not enter the artifact space. Clearly, it had not forgotten what had happened a few years ago. However, this delay allowed Jianshin to finally catch up to the Emperor armament. His hand was already wrapped in a layer of dense chaotic force as he tightly gripped the thick hilt of the Emperor armament. The Emperor armament began to violently tremble as it produced a clear thrum. A powerful sword chi shot out, enveloping Jianshin as it constantly attacked Jianshin with its sword chi. Jianshin's clothes were reduced to tatters in a single moment. White marks appeared on his body, all caused by the Emperor armament's sword chi. The third layer of the chaotic body allowed Jianshin's body to be tough enough to fend off the attacks of the Holy Emperor at the third heavenly layer. Although the Emperor armament was powerful, it was very difficult for it to harm Jianshin when no one was controlling it. Jianshin bellowed out as he poured his chaotic force into the Emperor armament. With the influx of chaotic force, the Emperor armament was gradually suppressed. The sword chi from the sword rapidly weakened before completely vanishing in the end. The Emperor armament's light became dimmer and dimmer, gradually being replaced by destructive black light. The Emperor armament fell completely silent, completely under Jianshin's control. At the same time, Jianshin sensed the existence of a soul within the Emperor armament. The soul was extremely weak, as if it had fallen into a deep slumber. The reason why the Emperor armament is so intelligent is probably because of this strand of soul. It should be the human Saint Emperor who left behind the Emperor armament, Jianshan thought. Jianshan came to a realization. At the same time, he understood that the Emperor armament's actions before were all instincts of the soul. It was an instinctive reaction to avoid danger. It was not purposeful. Turn small for me. Jianshan bellowed out. The 30-meter-long Emperor armament rapidly shrank, turning into a 4-meter-long and 2-finger-wide sword in the blink of an eye. It radiated with a great pressure. Jianshan, you finally gained control of the Emperor armament. Newbies ran over from afar and excitedly said. With the assistance of the Emperor armament, their chances of getting through the central hub had increased. Jianshan was overjoyed as well. With a wave of his hand, a shocking sword chi immediately shot out, shooting toward the barrier with lightning-like speed. The sword chi collided with the barrier and silently melted a huge hole in it. The sword chi then continued toward the hall without slowing down at all. Boom! With a violent rumble, the entire hall began to violently tremble. It was not just the hall. Even the divine hall was greatly affected. It began to gently sway. The Emperor armament actually has an innate resistance to barriers. The defenses of barriers will be greatly weakened before the Emperor armament. Jianshan was surprised before ravishing with joy. Heavens, Jianshan, your attack has reached the 6th heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor at the very least, or even the 7th heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor. Newbies was filled with shock. Chapter 948. Jianshan was unable to contain his excitement as he stared at the trembling hall. He knew extremely well that his attack with the Emperor armament was equivalent to the Holy Emperor's 6th heavenly layer at the very least, or even the Holy Emperor's 7th heavenly layer. And this was only the result of a casual attack from Jianshan. If he used his full strength, the attack would be much more powerful. Roar! Loud beast roars rang out from behind. A few large, vicious beasts aggressively charged toward them. Jianshan gripped the Emperor armament tightly in his right hand. He glanced back at the vicious beasts and said, "Let's hurry up and stop this Nike. Let's not waste any more time here." Yes, we can't waste any more time. Another 2 hours of delay might give Nike the chance to take full control of the church, Newbies said with a heavy voice. Jianshan and Newbies left together and continued toward the hall. They returned to the 9th floor very soon. The central door that controlled the divine hall remained the same as it had been a few years ago. It had completely fused with the ceiling, so it was very difficult to discover its existence with the naked eye. Jianshan and Newbies arrived below the central door. They both sternly stared at it. The Emperor armament in Jianshan's hand erupted with a black light once again. Chaotic force began to surge into the Emperor armament, charging up for his most powerful attack. Immediately, a huge pressure enveloped the entire hall. At that moment, the air in the hall seemed to freeze. The space around Jianshan distorted, causing him to become blurry. If something like this happened on the Tianyuan continent, the space there probably would have shattered from the tremendous pressure long ago. A dense layer of golden light surged from Newbies like a roaring fire. Tremendous pulses of energy radiated from Newbies, causing the surrounding space to gently tremble. At that moment, Newbies had completely unleashed his strength as a 2nd heavenly layer, Holy Emperor. With his body as a beast, the powerful attacks he unleashed were far greater than his actual strength. The battle prowess he displayed was no weaker than a 3rd heavenly layer Holy Emperor. "Do it!" Jianshan immediately called out when he saw that Newbies had finished charging up. He swung the Emperor armament in his hand toward the ceiling with lightning-like speed. Immediately, an extremely huge strand of sword chi radiating with a devastating presence shot towards the central hub as a streak of black light. It struck the central hub heavily. At the same time, Newbies moved as well. He suddenly swung his hands, and a tremendous amount of energy immediately surged out from his body, forming a golden serpent that shot toward the central door. Quick! Boom! Jianshan and Newbies' full-powered attacks struck the door at the same time, immediately erupting with a deafening boom. Violent ripples of energy wreaked havoc in all directions, striking the walls of the hall with rumbling sounds. The entire palace shook violently, as if there was an earthquake. On the 9th floor of the palace, the countless pieces of decorations left behind from tens of thousands of years ago were reduced to dust. After a long time, when the violent energy waves that were wreaking havoc in the hall slowly calmed down, an extremely small crack could be seen on the central door on the ceiling. Although they had failed to break through the door in a single strike, Jianshun and Newbies both smiled. Fantastic. The defenses of the central door really aren't as great as the Divine Hall. It's not only the Holy Emperor who can break through it. If we do it a few more times, we'll definitely be able to break through it, Jianshun said with some excitement. Let's continue, said Newbies. Energy surged out of his body once again. Ha ha ha. What a pity, what a pity. You're too late. At this moment, a great laugh rang out from within the hall. It was impossible to tell where the voice came from. It's Tiznike. Has he already gained control of the Divine Hall? Jinshin's face changed slightly, and he immediately became stern. Newbies' face became ugly as well. He said with a heavy voice, "This is bad. Tiznike has gained control of the Divine Hall, so he can use its power against us. The power of the Divine Hall is on the same level as the Holy Emperor, so even if our strength has increased, we're nowhere close to being able to contend against the Holy Emperor." Ha 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 ha. I really never thought that you would still be alive. Ruler of the Turtle Clan, you haven't been possessed by the Emperor of the 8 Wastelands. But that's fine too. Compared to the Emperor of the 8 Wastelands, you're much easier to deal with. Tiznike's voice rang out again. His voice rang out from all directions once more. Shortly after, the central door on the ceiling suddenly opened, and he slowly descended from within. Energy visible to the naked eye coiled around his body. The energy radiated with a tremendous presence. It was so powerful that even Jinshin's face changed. This was the power of the Divine Hall, an existence on the same level as the Holy Emperor. Jinshin and Newbies retreated rapidly, pulling far away from Tiznike. The two of them could see the layer of power around Tiznike. Tiznike would not be so easy to harm with the protection of the Divine Hall. Tiznike hovered 3 meters above the ground. His face was filled with arrogance while his gaze toward Jinshin and Newbies was filled with disdain. At that moment, he seemed like a supreme king who looked down on the world. Ruler of the Turtle Clan, Newbies, I originally didn't want to kill you, but you actually tried to break through the door to the center of the hall to stop me from controlling it. You can't blame me for what happens then, Tiznike sneered. His eyes were filled with killing intent. He waved his hand, and a strand of the Divine Hall's power condensed. It shot toward Jinshin and Newbies with a powerful pulse of energy that caused the surrounding space to tremble. With a flash, Newbies dodged the attack while Jinshin swung the Emperor armament in his hand. He used his full strength to forcefully block the attack. He wanted to see just how powerful the Divine Hall was. With a boom, the Emperor armament collided with the Divine Hall's power. Jinshin immediately felt an extremely powerful force strike him viciously, sending him flying. He slammed into the wall of the 9th floor, causing the entire place to gently tremble. A grunt rang out from Jinshin's throat. His organs were immediately shaken up from the strike, but most of the power from the Divine Hall had been weakened by his strike. Coupled with the toughness of his chaotic body, he did not suffer any major injuries from the forceful strike. How is this possible? You're actually not injured. Tiznike stared at Jinshin with widened eyes. Disbelief filled his eyes. Chapter 949. Tesnik's expression changed slightly when he heard Jinshin's words, but a cold light flashed through his eyes. He laughed aloud. Ruler of the Turtle Clan, you're quite knowledgeable. You've actually seen through the secret that I haven't fully grasped the Divine Hall. That's right, it's just as you said. I still haven't fully grasped the 8 Wastelands Divine Hall, so I can only use a portion of its power. Although it's nowhere close to the power of an emperor, it's definitely not something you can contend against. Although the sliver of power from before failed to heavily injure you, it was enough to force you to block it with all your strength. I just wonder how much you can endure. With that, Tesnik suddenly pushed his hand forward. Immediately, Several strands of the Divine Hall's power shot toward Jianshun with devastating might. Jianshun was stern. Blocking a strand of the Divine Hall's power before was already his limit. Now that he was facing several powerful Divine Halls, it was definitely not something he could contend against, even with the help of the Emperor armament. Jianshun's current strength was only at the peak of the 7th heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor with the Emperor armament, while the Divine Hall's power was at the 8th or even 9th heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor at the very least. It had already exceeded the limits of what Jianshun could handle. With a thought, a golden streak of light immediately shot out from Jianshun's forehead. In the blink of an eye, it condensed into a golden pagoda before him. The pagoda rapidly expanded, turning into a golden pagoda that stood in front of Jianshun in a single moment. Boom! The Divine Hall's power struck the golden pagoda, erupting with a deafening boom. Violent ripples of energy wreaked havoc in the hall, kicking up a storm of energy. The golden pagoda didn't even shake after withstanding the attacks of the Divine Palace's power. These attacks, which were comparable to the power of the Holy Emperor's 9 levels of heaven, couldn't even leave a mark on the divine artifact. Jianshun hid behind the sacred artifact and slapped it with his left hand. The 30-meter-tall sacred artifact was sent flying towards Teznik by Jianshun's palm power. Jianshun gripped the Emperor armament in his right hand tightly as he stuck close to the Saint artifact. He used the Saint artifact as a cover as he rapidly approached Tizniki. I want to see how many of my attacks your Golden Divine Pagoda can block. This Nike sneered. Controlling a portion of the Divine Hall's power gave him the strength to be fearless against 16th star Poseidon warriors. With his confidence inflated, he did not take Jianshun seriously at all. This Nike suddenly swung his arms, and immediately, countless strands of power shot toward the Emperor armament as finger-sized strands of sword chi. Every single strand of power was equally powerful. Violent booms constantly rang out as the Divine Hall's power constantly struck the Saint artifact. The violent ripples of energy formed a terrifying shockwave that forcefully stopped the Saint artifact's advance. It stopped 30 meters away from the Nike, unable to advance any further. Suddenly, the Saint artifact shone with a bright, golden light, enveloping a radius of 100 meters. The area enveloped by the golden light had basically become the Saint artifact's domain. The Saint artifact could take anyone in or out of the artifact space as it wished, provided that the person did not resist at all. In the next moment, a violent energy filled with a destructive presence suddenly appeared behind Tiznik. The Emperor armament shone with a black light as it stabbed toward Tiznik with unbelievable speed. Although this Nike controlled a portion of the Divine Hall's power, his personal strength remained at the 9th heavenly layer of Saint Ruler. He was unable to react to Jianshun's sudden attack at all. The Emperor armament struck Tizniki, but it was blocked by the power of the Divine Hall around him. The power protecting this Nike immediately began to pulse violently after taking on the Emperor armament's attack, but stabilized very soon. Jianshun's arm suddenly trembled as he used the swift sword. The Emperor armament had already turned into a blur in Jianshun's hand, stabbing toward the layer of power around this Nike at an indiscernible speed. Jianshun struck out with unbelievable speed. In just a single moment, he had stabbed out several dozen times. Every single strike was at the peak of the 7th heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor, and they all struck the same spot. Although the power of the temple protecting Tizniki was very strong, it couldn't withstand such a fierce attack. In the end, a small hole was opened in it. Jianshun's eyes lit up. Powerful killing intent radiated from him without any disguise at all. He immediately controlled the Emperor armament and pierced through the Divine Hall's defenses, stabbing into Thisnik's body mercilessly. Spurt! The Emperor armament emerged from Thisnik's chest. Droplets of blood constantly dripped from the tip of the sword as powerful chaotic force surged out of the Emperor armament, wreaking havoc in Thisnik's body. Arg! This Nike uncontrollably cried out. The chaotic force that had entered his body was extremely powerful. Only the 3rd layer of the chaotic body could endure it, so it was impossible for Thisnike's fragile body to endure the destruction of the chaotic body. Wherever the chaotic force passed by, his flesh would explode with a heavy sound as blood splattered in all directions. Ruler of the Turtle Clan, even if I have to die here, I will drag you down with me. Thisnike cried out in despair. Determination filled his eyes. He wanted to use the sliver of Emperor's power within him to take down Jianshun with him. Jianshun could tell what Thisnike was thinking. His eyes immediately turned cold, and his left hand struck Thisnike's head with lightning-like speed. The heavy force directly shattered Thisnike's head, wiping out his soul. With Thisnike's death, the divine hall lost control and began to slowly disperse. Swish! The 30-meter-long saint artifact shrank back to the size of a fist. It shot into Jianshun's forehead as a golden streak of light, entering Jianshun's sea of consciousness. Newbies walked over from afar. He could not help but exhale deeply when he saw the withered Thisnike on the ground. He said, "That bastard is finally dead." He controlled the divine hall's power earlier and was actually able to unleash an attack at the 8th heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor. I gave him a fright, but he still wasn't your opponent in the end, Jianshun. Newbies finally relaxed. Jianshun secretly sighed in relief as he stared at Thisnike's corpse with mixed feelings. He returned the Emperor armament to his space ring before slowly making his way to Thisnike's corpse. He crouched down and gently placed his hand on Thisnike's chest. An extremely powerful pulse of energy pulsed from Thisnike's chest. Jianshun then sucked out a thumb-sized strand of pure energy. It was Emperor's power. Jianshun carefully sucked in the strand of Emperor's power. He was extremely stern. He knew extremely well that this was true Emperor's power. It was much more powerful than the divine hall Thisnike controlled. Jianshun, do you plan on keeping this Emperor's power with you? Newbie stared at Jianshun in surprise. Jianshun nodded. Correct. That's exactly what I was thinking. This Emperor's power is extremely powerful. Although it's only a single strike, it's enough to heavily injure a 9th heavenly layer Holy Emperor. If it's used properly, it can even kill a 9th heavenly layer Holy Emperor. Jianshun put away the Emperor's power, but he did not dare to store it in his body. Instead, he stored it in the artifact space, where the artifact spirit watched over it. As a result, even if the Emperor's power suddenly erupted, the artifact spirit would be able to block it. Although I can refine this strand of Emperor's power into chaotic force, the amount of chaotic force it can provide is extremely limited. It won't be of much help at all. If I use it to injure my enemies, I can threaten a 9th heavenly layer Holy Emperor. Only then can the strand of Emperor's power be maximized, Jianshun thought. Jianshun, you really did it. You did not disappoint me. Suddenly, a gentle and pleasant voice rang out. The sudden appearance of the saint weapon stunned both Jianshun and newbies. Afterwards, they raised their heads and saw an illusionary woman hovering in the air before them. Poseidon, it's actually you. Jianshun and newbies immediately recognized the illusionary woman and were both shocked. Jianshun, you've obtained the Emperor armament the human emperor left behind after his death, and this divine hall is about to fall into your hands as well. Are you satisfied with what you've obtained from the divine hall of the 8 wastelands? Poseidon's voice rang out. Her voice was pleasant, like the music of the heavens. Your Majesty Poseidon, since you can enter the divine hall of the 8 wastelands as you please, you must know about the schemes within, Jianshun asked sternly. That's right. I do know about everything here, including the matters of the Blood Demon Emperor and Emperor Gulou. But don't worry, I called you to the divine hall of the 8 wastelands out of consideration for you. I don't mean you any harm. At the same time, what happened in the divine hall is a test for you, Poseidon said. Jianshun fell silent. The goddess of the sea race was one of the 4 supreme experts of ancient times, an existence that surpassed the Holy Emperor. Her abilities far exceeded what Jianshun knew. Jianshun knew that everything that happened in the divine hall of the 8 wastelands had probably always been under Poseidon's surveillance. Your Majesty Poseidon, you've helped me time and time again. May I ask what you want me to do for you? Jianshun asked. Poseidon remained silent for a while before replying. Jianshun, I want you to go to a place and retrieve something for me. That's why I'm helping you. What do you want? Can't you find experts to help you with your identity as the goddess of the sea race? Jianshun was curious. No, you're probably the only one who can enter that place. Everyone else will die, even experts like the Holy Emperor, Poseidon said. Chapter 950. Jianshun was immediately surprised when he heard Poseidon's words. However, he became even more curious about the existence of that place. Your Majesty Poseidon, may I ask what kind of place you're talking about? What kind of dangers are there that even Holy Emperor-level experts have a chance of dying? At the same time, I'm far weaker than Holy Emperor-level experts. Since even the Holy Emperor has a chance of dying, it'll be even more dangerous for me if I go in, Jianshun said. The sea goddess shook her head and said, very few people in the scene know of the existence of that place, but its strangeness and level of danger is something that no other dangerous place in the sea can compare to. This is because there are no mysteries of the world there, nor is there any flow of energy. There is a mysterious power there that can suppress everyone's abilities and energy. As a result, whether it's the Holy Emperor or the Holy Emperor-level experts, they'll lose all their abilities and energy once they enter that place. They'll become as weak as ordinary people, unable to deal with the dangers there. In the past few years, not only have I searched the entire sea realm time and time again for the people who can enter that place, I've even enveloped the entire Tian Yuan continent, the Beast God continent, and the continents where the 100 races reside. Unfortunately, I've searched for over 100,000 years, but I haven't found a single person who can enter that place until you appeared. Poseidon's voice was filled with melancholy, mixed feelings, and some excitement. Jianshun, in all these years, you're the only person I've found who can enter that place and return safely. This is because your path of cultivation is different from ordinary people. You don't comprehend the mysteries of the world, and the power you use is not any known power on the Tian Yuan continent. Instead, it's a mysterious power that I've never seen or heard of before. I can sense that the power you use is powerful and terrifying. It's not something that can be suppressed by that place. Furthermore, your body is extremely powerful. With such a powerful defense, the Holy Emperor's attacks below the third celestial layer will not be able to harm you. Even if your strength is suppressed in that place, you can still protect yourself with your powerful body. Therefore, Jianshun, you're the only one who can safely enter that place. Please help me. Jianshun came to a realization when he heard that. No wonder the mighty sea goddess would come to him for help out of nowhere. It was because he cultivated the chaotic body, which made him different from others. Your Majesty Poseidon, what exactly do you want me to help you get from that place? I wonder if I can fulfill your request with my current strength. Jianshun cupped his hands and asked, I'll tell you exactly what I want you to get when the time comes. With your current strength, you'll be fine once you enter that place. The greatest threat there is that mysterious power that can suppress the Holy Emperor's strength and reduce him to an ordinary person. Without that mysterious power, any 16-star expert can do whatever they want in that place. In my sea realm, there will be a worldly ebb once every 10,000 years. That place will only open when the worldly ebb descends. The next worldly ebb will be when you enter that place. Right now, it has been exactly 10,000 years since the last worldly ebb. I estimate that the next worldly ebb is not far away. According to the past worldly ebbs, it won't be more than 50 years at most, Poseidon said. After a moment of thought, Jianshun said, Your Majesty Poseidon, I, Jianshun, am a person who repays debts with debts. Since you've helped me so much, Jianshun will definitely do everything in my power to assist you in obtaining what you want. Very good. Jianshun, I'll be grateful to you once you successfully obtain that item. You will be an eternal friend of my sea race. Poseidon's voice was filled with undisguised excitement. He then continued, Jianshun, the divine hall of the 8 wastelands was created by the Blood Demon Emperor in the past. It was then modified by Gu Lu and the 8 wastelands, so it has become extremely powerful. Hide in there, and no one below the Holy Emperor will be able to harm you. Go to the core of the divine hall and refine it. Yes, your majesty, Poseidon. Jinshin's face was filled with undisguised joy. With the protection of the divine hall, he no longer needed to fear the 10 protector clans of the continent. Poseidon's illusionary figure slowly drifted over to Amagami, who still hovered there. He gently extended a finger, and the Amagami immediately drifted toward Jinshin with a faint red light. Afterward, he said, "Take this bead with you. Remember, you must find a new host for it within 10 years. You must find a new host for it within 10 years? Why is that?" Jinshin asked in confusion. Poseidon gently shook his head. "I don't know why either. This was something that the ancient divine beast, the winged tiger, told me in the past. This bead also came from the winged tiger." "What? The Amagami came from the winged tiger?" Jinshin was extremely surprised. "That's right. This bead was indeed given to me by the winged tiger. Back then, the ancient divine beast, the winged tiger, told me to look after this bead for him. Once the host of the bead dies, I must find a new host for it within 10 years. The bead cannot be left alone for more than 10 years, or he will flatten my sea realm." Poseidon's voice became rather unnatural towards the end. Hearing the words "flatten the sea realm," Jinshin couldn't help but inwardly gasp. However, he immediately asked out of curiosity, "Didn't the ancient divine beast, the winged tiger, disappear a long time ago? Is his threat still effective?" The ancient divine beast, the winged tiger, has indeed disappeared for many years. However, I owe him a debt of gratitude for his guidance in the past. Moreover, the reason why I'm still alive today is also because of the winged tiger. As a result, I have been secretly paying attention to this bead all these years in order to repay the winged tiger's kindness in the past. Poseidon explained. Jinshin was even more shocked. Only now did he finally understand why Poseidon had lived for so long without dying. He had actually obtained the help of the ancient divine beast, the winged tiger. This made him feel rather incredulous. What was even more unbelievable was that the winged tiger had actually given guidance to the sea goddess. After all, in ancient times, the sea goddess was in existence on par with the winged tiger, Emo Tanyun, and Eruejin. They were the 4 supreme experts of the 4 races. Looks like although the 4 supreme experts were all existences that had surpassed Saint Emperor in the ancient times, their strength was not on the same level. Jinshin sighed. Newbies, who stood beside him, had already become stunned. What Poseidon had said had an extremely great impact on newbies. No one on the Tianyuan continent knew about these secrets. If it were not for Poseidon, probably no one would have known about them. Jinshin slowly extended his hand and grabbed Amagami. He asked, "Your Majesty Poseidon, do you know if Amagami will pose any harm to the host once it enters the body? I've already observed this bead for several 100,000 years. Throughout these years, the bead has traveled across the 4 races and entered the bodies of several hundred people. However, there were no other changes aside from the same cultivation method and energy. It shouldn't pose any harm to the host," Poseidon said. Jinshin hesitated before stowing Amagami away in his space ring in the end. He had already made up his mind about what to do with Amagami. "Jinshin, remember, the bead cannot exist by itself for more than 10 years. It has already spent 5 years in the divine hall of the 8 wastelands. You have to find a host for it in the remaining 5 years." Poseidon's voice rang out as her figure gradually faded. By the time she had finished speaking, Poseidon had completely vanished. She had left the divine hall of the 8 wastelands. Jinshin quickly dismissed his thoughts after Poseidon's departure. He looked at the door to the central hub on the ceiling and directly flew up. In the end, he vanished into the door and prepared to refine the divine hall. Jinshin refined the divine hall at an extraordinary speed. Tesniak had spent 5 years and still failed to completely refine the divine hall. He could only control a small portion of its power, but Jinshin had only used 3 months to gain complete control over the entire divine hall. After gaining complete control over the divine hall, Jinshin's soul had completely fused with it. The divine hall seemed to become a part of him. Not only could he clearly sense everything within the divine hall, but he could also control all its power as well. This was a power on the same level as the Holy Emperor. In the divine hall, Jianshun could control this power like it was his own arm. However, the only flaw was that this power could not be used against people outside the divine hall. Jianshun could clearly sense the existence of the class 8 dire beasts in the divine hall. Furthermore, in a hidden corner of the divine hall, he discovered 2 extremely large skeletons. These were the skeletons of the sea folk. There was an extremely pure and powerful energy fluctuation hidden within the skeletons. The Holy Emperor's skeletons. Jianshun immediately determined the identity of these 2 skeletons. They were definitely Emperor Gyul and the 8 Wastelands. This made him extremely excited. Jianshun left the central hub and reappeared on the 9th floor of the Divine Hall. Newbies had been waiting there the entire time for the past 3 months. Currently, he sat to one side and cultivated silently. He did not sense Jianshun's arrival. Jianshun looked at Newbies, who was sitting there with his eyes closed, and smiled. "Newbies, it's time for us to go out." Newbies slowly opened his eyes and revealed a sliver of excitement. "Jianshun, you've already gained control of the Divine Hall?" Jianshun smiled and opened his hand. Space rings immediately flew out from the entrance of the Divine Hall and gathered above Jianshun's hand. There were over 100 of them. These space rings belonged to the experts of the sea folk who had died in the Divine Hall. Jianshun had collected them from various places through the Divine Hall's power. Newbies immediately understood that Jianshun had gained complete control of the Divine Hall when he saw Jianshun's ability. He immediately became excited. "Fantastic. With the Divine Hall's protection, we have nothing to fear even if we come across Hall Elders. God damn it. We were chased around by the experts of the Serpent God Hall and Heaven Spirit Hall a few days ago. Now that we have enough strength, we can't let them go. Jianshun, let's go get revenge and kill our way to the Serpent God Hall and Heaven Spirit Hall." Chapter 951. A cold light immediately flashed through Jianshun's eyes when he heard what Newbies had said. He clenched his fists tightly and gritted his teeth. "I will definitely go to the Serpent God Hall and the Heaven Spirit Hall, especially the divine general who stole my armor. Jianshun, will let you know that my things are not so easy to take." "Jianshun, do you think we should directly kill our way to the Serpent God Hall once we get out?" Newbies had already begun rubbing his fists. Jianshun thought about it for a while before shaking his head in the end. "There's no hurry. Let's return to the Turtle Clan first. The 5-year period between me and the Taihan clan is up, so we can't waste any more time. Otherwise, I'm afraid that something will happen to the Turtle Clan. I may not be the ruler of the Turtle Clan, but the Grand Elder of the Turtle Clan died to save me. The Grand Elder's final wish was to revive the Turtle Clan, so I can't disappoint the Grand Elder. Once I deal with the matters of the Taihan clan, I'll immediately head to the Serpent God Hall to take back what belongs to me and wipe away my humiliation." Jianshun stowed all the space rings in his hand into the artifact space before leaving the Divine Hall with Newbies. He did not have the time to tidy up the items in the space rings at all. He even left the 2 Holy Emperor skeletons in the Divine Hall. The experts of the Poseidon Hall, the Serpent God Hall, and the Heaven Spirit Hall remained where they were outside the Divine Hall. They had already waited there for 5 whole years. Not a single one of them chose to leave during that time. They all wanted to personally witness who the final victor of the 8 Wastelands would be and what treasures their clansmen would obtain from the 8 Wastelands. During these 5 years, the majestic 8 Desolation Divine Palace remained suspended in the air in its original state. Everything that happened inside changed from what happened inside was impossible to tell from the outside. Even when the Emperor armament struck the Divine Hall of the 8 Wastelands and the great disturbance caused by Jianshun's battle against Tiznaiki, the Divine Hall did not change at all. It's already been 5 years since they entered, yet not a single one of them has come out. Something's not right. Such a voice would ring out from the crowd from time to time. Back then, a total of 160 experts had entered the Divine Hall of the 8 Wastelands, yet not a single one of them had come out. This made many people suspicious, because if it was a normal treasure hunt, there would definitely be many people who were not strong enough to withdraw. I wonder what the situation inside is like. Is Jianshan still fine? Can he find the central control of the Divine Hall and obtain the right to possess it? He's someone the Hall Master values, so nothing can happen to him in the Divine Hall of the Eight Wastelands, thought Elder Hong. Beside Elder Hong stood another temple elder of the Sea God Temple. She was the woman whose face could not be seen clearly. She held a staff in her hand. Although she looked very similar to Atlantis, the strongest person under the great Emperor realm in the sea region, she was a completely different person from Atlantis. At this moment, she silently hovered in the air. Her beautiful eyes were emotionless as she stared at the Divine Hall of the Eight Wastelands. She did not say anything at all. She had been in this state for a full 5 years. Everyone, look, someone's coming out. At this moment, a cry rang out. Everyone's eyes immediately lit up when they heard the voice, and they immediately focused their attention. Two figures hovered high above the Divine Hall of the Eight Wastelands. They had appeared so suddenly that they did not cause any disturbances at all. Even the 6 hall elders present had no idea when the two of them had appeared. Jianshan, it's actually him. He's already come out of the Divine Hall of the Eight Wastelands. Elder Hong recognized the two with a single glance and immediately murmured. The two people who had silently appeared above the Divine Hall were Jianshan and Newbies. The woman standing beside Elder Hong narrowed her eyes and finally spoke. No, their strength is increased by a lot. They actually both possess the strength of the 15th star. The woman's cold voice contained a bit of surprise. Elder Hong was surprised when he heard that. He said that's right. Their presences really have become much more powerful. They're both 15th star experts now. The two of them must have benefited quite a lot from the trip to the Divine Hall of the Eight Wastelands. I wonder how the others are doing. Jianshan and Newbies calmly stared at the experts who had gathered in 3 different camps in the distance. Afterward, they flew towards the camp of Hall Poseidon together. Why did only the two of you come out? What happened to the others? What happened in the Divine Hall of the Eight Wastelands? Why did only 2 people come out after 5 whole years? Where are the others who obtained the legacy of the Emperor of the Eight Wastelands in the end? The experts of the Serpent God Hall and Heaven Spirit Hall constantly asked questions. They all wanted to know what had happened in the Divine Hall of the Eight Wastelands and the situation of their clansmen. Jianshan and Newbies ignored the questions. They directly arrived before Elder Hong and clasped their hands at him. Greetings, Elder Hong. Elder Hong faintly smiled as he constantly studied Jianshan. He said, I can already tell that the two of you have benefited greatly from the trip to the Divine Hall of the Eight Wastelands. Your strength has actually increased by so much. Jianshan, have you obtained the legacy of the Emperor of the Eight Wastelands? Elder Hong spoke very softly, but everyone present was powerful. Even though they were very far away, they still heard him clearly. Immediately, everyone, including the hall elders of the other 2 divine halls, looked at Jianshan and Newbies. Jianshan gently shook his head. Elder Hong, to be honest, I did not obtain the legacy of the Emperor of the Eight Wastelands. The Divine Hall of the Eight Wastelands is actually a scam, a scheme. Elder Hong was surprised. He asked, what do you mean? After a moment of thought, Jianshan said, May I ask if Elder Hong has heard about the Blood Demon Emperor? The Blood Demon Emperor. Is it the Blood Demon Emperor who fought against the 3 Hall Masters several tens of thousand years ago? Elder Hong was surprised. He stared closely at Jianshan as he vaguely guessed something. That's right. It's the Blood Demon Emperor who fought against the 3 Hall Masters several tens of thousand years ago. The Divine Hall of the Eight Wastelands originally belonged to the Blood Demon Emperor. It was called the Blood Demon Divine Hall. The Blood Demon Emperor did not perish in the battle against the 3 Hall Masters. His soul fled to the Divine Hall and hid itself. He then devoured Emperor Gu Lu and the 8 Wastelands who occupied the Divine Hall later on. He set up a killing trap in the Divine Hall and spread the news to lure everyone into the Divine Hall. He used the trap to kill all the experts who entered the Divine Hall and used their blood to recover his weakened soul. He wanted to possess our bodies and be reborn. As a result, of the 160 experts who entered the Divine Hall of the Eight Wastelands, only the two of us have made it out alive, Jianshun explained. How is that possible? How could the Divine Hall of the Eight Wastelands be part of the Blood Demon Emperor's scheme? The Eight Wastelands Emperor and Emperor Gulu were both Holy Emperor-level experts. How could they have been devoured by the Blood Demon Emperor? Emperors only live for 10,000 years, while the Blood Demon Emperor was an emperor from several tens of thousand years ago. How could he have lived for so long with only his soul left? Everyone, he's just making things up to deceive us. Jianshun's words immediately caused a huge uproar. At this moment, everyone, including the 6 hall elders, found it difficult to remain calm. The Divine Hall of the Eight Wastelands was actually part of the Blood Demon Emperor's scheme, a scheme that could allow him to be reborn. All of them found this unbelievable. This was because the Blood Demon Emperor was a famed, vicious person from several tens of thousand years ago, and emperors only lived for 10,000 years. The fact that the Blood Demon Emperor was still alive after all this time was like a huge bomb to them. Ruler of the Turtle Clan, since you've said that this is part of the Blood Demon Emperor's scheme to be reborn, why are you still alive when everyone else has died? Do you possess the ability to defeat the Blood Demon Emperor's soul? An old man asked. His voice was forceful. He was a hall elder of the Heaven's Spirit Hall. Correct. The Blood Demon Emperor's soul did die to my hands. Jianshun did not hide anything and indifferently replied. What about the ruler of the Serpent God Hall, Tizniki? A hall elder of the Serpent God Hall growled. His complexion was very ugly. Tizniki is dead as well. He died in the Divine Hall of the Eight Wastelands. Jianshun coldly stared at the hall elder of the Serpent God Hall. He did not have a good impression of the Serpent God Hall. Impossible, that's impossible. Tizniki possessed the power of an emperor left behind by the Hall Master. So how could he have died in the Divine Hall of the Eight Wastelands? You're lying? The hall elder of the Serpent God Hall sternly called out. His face became extremely sunken and terrifying. I've already told you the truth. It's up to you whether you believe me or not. Jianshun glanced at the experts of the two halls without any fear. With a thought, the huge divine hall in the air immediately shrank at a visible rate. In the end, it became the size of a palm and flew into Jianshun's hand, becoming a miniature divine hall. How is this possible? He's already gained control of the Divine Hall of the Eight Wastelands. The Divine Hall of the Eight Wastelands has actually fallen into his hands. He's already gained control of the Divine Hall. Jianshun's actions caused another wave of cries. At that moment, everyone had forgotten about the fate of their clansmen. They all stared at the Divine Hall of the Eight Wastelands in Jianshun's hand with shining eyes. Undisguised greed filled their eyes. Even the experts of the Serpent God Hall were no exception. Good. Jianshun, you really have gained control of the Divine Hall, Elder Hong chuckled. His eyes were filled with deep envy. Noticing the gazes of the people in the surroundings, Jianshun sneered. He raised the Divine Hall of the Eight Wastelands high up in his hand and called out, "If you want the Divine Hall of the Eight Wastelands, feel free to come and take it." Chapter 952. Noticing the gazes of the people in the surroundings, Jianshun coldly smiled. He raised the shrunken Eight Wastelands Divine Hall high in the air and yelled, "If you want the Eight Wastelands Divine Hall, feel free to come and take it." Jianshun's arrogance and disregard for everyone immediately caused the expressions of many people to sink. Great anger surged within them. The people who could make it, they were all peak experts of the various large clans in the Sea Realm, without exception. Every single one of them had lived for several thousand years and were old monsters who value their reputation more than anything else. How could they allow a junior to act so presumptuously before them? Insolent brat, how dare you act so arrogantly? Let's get old man to teach you a lesson in place of your seniors. I'll let you know that there's always someone better than you out there. A hunchbacked old man with wrinkles on his face immediately bellowed out. He immediately shot toward Jianshun from the group of people from the Serpent God Hall with lightning-like speed. His skinny hands swung toward Jianshun with great force. The old man was a 16th star expert. He had reached the 5th heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor and was a renowned expert in the territory of the Serpent God Hall. The 2 hall elders of the Serpent God Hall did not stop him at all. Instead, they glared at the 2 hall elders from the Poseidon Hall. A tremendous presence vaguely radiated from them, locking onto the 2 hall elders from the Poseidon Hall. Elder Hong's face sank, and his gaze sharpened at that moment. He stared at the 2 hall elders of the Serpent God Hall like 2 sharp swords. A visible light shone from the eyes of the woman beside the 2 hall elders as well. She stared at the 2 hall elders coldly as undisguised killing intent filled her eyes. The 2 hall elders from the Poseidon Hall were secretly being held back by the 2 hall elders of the Serpent God Hall. If they assisted Jianshan, they would definitely suffer the fierce attacks of the 2 hall elders. Jianshan coldly stared at the old man who was shooting towards him. A cold smile appeared at the corner of his mouth as he said, "Good timing." With a flip of his hand, the Emperor armament appeared in Jianshan's hand. With the injection of chaotic force, the Emperor armament immediately radiated with a surging black light. A destructive presence enveloped the entire region, causing the expressions of everyone present to change. The expression of the expert from the Serpent God Hall who had attacked Jianshan drastically changed. The energy that erupted from the Emperor armament was so powerful that even he shivered in fear. It was not an attack that he could withstand. How is this possible? How did he become so strong? What kind of power is this? It's actually so terrifying. The old man was shocked. Just when he wanted to dodge, the Emperor armament stabbed toward him as a black streak of light. "Let's fight." Running out of options, the old man immediately made up his mind. A spear suddenly appeared in his hand, and he struck out with all his strength to receive the Emperor armament. Boom! The Emperor armament violently collided with the old man's spear, immediately erupting with a great boom. Jianshan's attack possessed the might of the 7th heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor, while the old man was only at the 5th heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor. How could he withstand the attack? He immediately vomited blood as he was blown away. His face was pale white, having been heavily injured. That's what they mean by there's always someone better than you. You're a member of the Serpent God Hall. Since you've attacked me, I definitely won't spare you, Jianshan coldly said. Jianshan's cold voice rang out. He glared at the old man as killing intent surged in his eyes. He swung his sword from afar, wanting to finish off the old man completely. A huge strand of sword chi shot out from the Emperor armament, turning into a black dragon. It shot toward the old man with lightning-like speed as if it could destroy the world. Wherever the sword chi passed by, space would be ripped apart. The terrifying ripples of energy caused the expressions of many people to change. The eyes of the old man who had been blown away by Jianshan's attack suddenly narrowed. His pale face became even paler as despair filled his eyes. He was already heavily injured, so he was unable to dodge the incoming sword chi. If he had to take on the attack again, he would be half dead even if he managed to survive. Stop! At this moment, a heavy voice rang out. A hall elder of the Serpent God Hall had taken action. With a gentle wave of his hand, a tremendous amount of energy was immediately emitted, colliding with Jianshan's powerful sword chi. With a boom, Jianshan's sword chi was personally blocked by the hall elder of the Serpent God Hall. The sword chi and the tremendous ripples of energy from the swing of the hall elder's hand both vanished, having canceled each other out. Jianshan coldly stared at the hall elder for a while before saying to the old man, "I'll spare your life this time, but you won't be so lucky next time." With that, Jianshan glanced around again and loudly said, "If there's anyone else who wants the Divine Hall, feel free to come and take it." This time, the surroundings fell silent. No one dared to say anything. Everyone's gazes toward Jianshan had completely changed. He could heavily injure a 16th star expert with a casual swing of his sword. Such strength was truly terrifying, enough to make many people fearful. The current Jianshan possessed the strength to protect the 8 Wastelands Divine Hall. Good. Jianshan, you really do surprise me more and more. I never thought that not only did you obtain the Divine Hall, but you even found an emperor armament left behind by a human emperor. You can actually unleash such terrifying power with the help of the emperor armament. Elder Hong chuckled as he praised Jianshun. The two hall elders of the Serpent God Hall became extremely sunken. Their hatred for Jianshun had reached its limit. Jianshun had first stolen the abyssal crystal from the emissary of the Serpent God Hall and fled to the territory of the Poseidon Hall. Now, he was making things difficult for them, which made the two of them feel rather embarrassed. Most importantly, they suspected that Tesniak had died to Jianshun's hands. Tesniak was the ruler of the Serpent God clan. He was greatly valued by the Hall Master and had been bestowed with the power of an emperor. His death was a heavy loss to the entire Serpent God clan because Tesniak possessed the potential to become an emperor. It was extremely likely for him to become an emperor in the future. "Let's go," a hall elder of the Serpent God Hall called out. He left with the people of the Serpent God Hall and no longer mentioned anything else. They all understood that Jianshun was no longer the weakling they could bully in the past. After the people of the Serpent God Hall left, the people of the Heaven Spirit Hall and the Poseidon Hall returned at the same time. However, aside from Jianshun and newbies, everyone's complexions were very ugly. They had waited bitterly for 5 years. Originally, they wanted their clansmen to bring back some treasures from the Divine Hall to revitalize their clans, but they had never thought that this would be the outcome. Out of the 160 experts who had entered, only 2 had returned alive. Although all of them knew that there were definitely many treasures in the Divine Hall, none of them dared to ask Jianshun for them because they feared Jianshun's strength. Jianshun returned to the territory of the Poseidon Hall with Elder Hong and the others. He turned down Elder Hong's invitation to go to the Divine Hall and directly made his way to the Turtle Clan with newbies. At this moment, the 5-year period between Jianshun and the Tai Hong clan had arrived a few days ago. The ancestor of the Tai Hong clan had personally arrived at the Turtle Clan with a group of experts and was waiting there. "Don't worry. Although the 5-year period is up, I won't make things difficult for you. I know that the ruler of your Turtle Clan is still in the Divine Hall of the 8 Wastelands, so I'll wait here until he comes out. However, if your ruler dies in the Divine Hall of the 8 Wastelands, you'll lose the bet. According to our agreement, your Turtle Clan will join our Tai Hong clan." The ancestor of the Tai Hong clan stood on the square with his arms crossed. He was composed and confident. He was confident that he would win the bet with Jianshun. This was because he refused to believe that the ruler of the Turtle Clan could grow to a level where he could match up to him in just 5 short years. The Tai Hong clan did not make things difficult for the Turtle Clan. Their goal was to subdue the Turtle Clan. At the same time, they had the 2nd and 3rd elders as spies in the Turtle Clan, so they would be able to win the hearts of the people if they were slightly more amiable. Coupled with the fact that the 2 respected elders were persuading the Turtle Clan, they would face much fewer obstacles in subduing the Turtle Clan. The experts of the Turtle Clan surrounded the people from the Tai Hong clan. Even the 2nd and 3rd elders were present. The Tai Hong clan's magnanimity makes us feel ashamed. Our Turtle Clan cannot be people who go back on their word. It doesn't matter why the ruler of the Turtle Clan is unable to return to the agreement from back then. He has already broken his promise and made our Turtle Clan lose face. I now announce that if the ruler of the Turtle Clan does not return in 3 days, we will lose the bet. According to the agreement from before, our Turtle Clan will submit to the Tai Hong clan and follow their lead, the 2nd elder said righteously. The 2nd elder is correct. Our Turtle Clan may be a tribe, but we are still an ancient clan with a long history. How can we break our promise? I agree with the 2nd elder's suggestion. If the ruler of the Turtle Clan does not return in 3 days, our Turtle Clan will submit to the Tai Hong clan, the 3rd elder added. The people of the Turtle Clan looked at each other, but they could not find any words to refute. Although the 2nd and 3rd elders were biased towards the Tai Hong clan, their words were not without reason. 2nd elder, 3rd elder, since when has the fate of the Turtle Clan been decided by the 2 of you? At this moment, a loud voice rang out from the sky. It echoed, making it impossible to tell where it came from. The ruler. It's the ruler's voice. The ruler has returned. The ruler of our turtle clan has returned. Many people of the turtle clan recognized the owner of the voice and immediately rejoiced. However, the expressions of the second and third elders became rather sunken. Two figures shot through the sky like meteors flying over with lightning speed. In the end, they slowly descended under the respectful gazes of over 10,000 people of the turtle clan. They were Jianshun and newbies. Jianshun and newbies concealed their presences and hid their strength. From the outside, they seemed like ordinary people. No one could see through their strength. Chapter 953. Jianshun's sudden return stunned the ancestor of the Tai Hong clan slightly, but he returned to his senses soon after. He chuckled aloud. "I've just mentioned the ruler, and you've returned. You sure have come back at the right time. I wonder if the ruler's trip to the 8 Wastelands Divine Hall went well." Jianshun and newbies stood 5 meters away from the ancestor of the Tai Hong clan. Jianshun calmly stared at the ancestor and said, "There's no need for me to answer these questions. Taido, 5 years have passed. It's time for us to come to an end." Jianshun had directly called the ancestor by his name, which immediately infuriated the other experts of the Tai Hong clan. Immediately, a 9th heavenly layer saint ruler pointed at Jianshun and yelled out, "How dare you call the ancestor by his name? You've lost your patience. Since your turtle clan is about to become a subsidiary tribe of my Tai Hong clan, why don't you apologize to the ancestor quickly? Only then will I forgive your disrespect." The people of the Tai Hong clan had already begun to treat the turtle clan as a subsidiary of their clan. As a result, there were still a few people who did not take Jianshun seriously, even though he was the ruler of the turtle clan. This was because in their eyes, the people of the turtle clan were people with powerful defenses and extremely weak attacks. They did not pose much of a threat. Jianshun's eyes turned cold, but before he could do anything, newbies had already turned into a golden blur and charged toward the person. Before the person could react, newbies had already stabbed into the person's chest and pulled out a bloody heart. Ark, the expert who had insulted Jianshun, produced a chilling cry. His face was filled with pain. Although he would not lose his life from having his heart taken away, the excruciating pain was unbearable. Newbies crushed the heart in his hand and coldly stared at the expert. He coldly said, "This is the result of insulting my brother. If there's a next time, I, the great Newbies, will definitely take your dog life." Newbies' face was cold. He did not give the Tai Hong clan any face at all. Everyone immediately fell silent when they saw this. Everyone stared at Newbies' bloody hand and immediately became filled with deep fear. The second and third elders were stunned by Newbies' ruthlessness as well. He was bold enough to personally dig out the heart of one of their clansmen right in front of the ancestor of the Tai Hong clan. Whether it was his strength or courage, it was definitely not something an ordinary person could compare to. However, what shocked them even more was the strength that Newbies had suddenly erupted with. He was no weaker than them. The ancestor of the Tai Hong clan, Taido, paled. He had failed to see through Newbies' strength earlier, nor did he think that Newbies would suddenly attack one of his clansmen. As a result, he had been careless and allowed Newbies to injure one of his clansmen. "Your Excellency, you sure talk big. Let this old man see how capable you are. How dare you act so presumptuously in front of this old man?" The old ancestor of the Tai Hong clan said in a deep voice. His eyes were filled with killing intent. "Taido, your opponent is me." Jianshun stood in front of Newbies as he stared at the ancestor of the Tai Hong clan emotionlessly. Taido's politeness had completely vanished. He coldly snorted, "Whatever. Ruler of the turtle clan, I'll let the old man subdue you first before teaching this arrogant brat a lesson." Jianshun sneered, "Taido, don't forget about our agreement. If I lose this battle, the turtle clan will become a vassal of your Tai Hong clan. However, if you lose, your Tai Hong clan will become the leader of the turtle clan." With that, Jianshun flew into the sky. "All right, if I lose, my Tai Hong clan will pledge loyalty to the turtle clan. However, ruler of the turtle clan, do you think that I might lose?" Taido was filled with confidence. He understood Jianshun's strength extremely well. Since he could enter the divine hall of the 8 wastelands, It was impossible for him to surpass the 14th star. He was at the peak of the 14th star at most. He refused to believe that Jianshan could grow to a level where he could match him in just 5 short years. In order to avoid harming the Turtle Clan, Jianshan and Taido moved the battle several dozen kilometers away. At this moment, the two of them stopped in the air above a mountain range several dozen kilometers away. In the surroundings were the experts of the Turtle Clan and Tai Hong Clan who had hurried over to watch the show. Ruler of the Turtle Clan, I won't bully the weak. I'll let you have 10 moves, so do it, Taido arrogantly said as he hovered in the air with his arms crossed. Newbies heard every single word Taido had said from afar. He immediately laughed aloud uncontrollably. Jianshan, did you hear that? He said he'll let you have 10 moves. You better not disappoint him. Jianshan's lips curled into a mocking smile. He looked at Taido in disdain and said, Taido, you don't have the right to let me have 10 moves. I only need a single strike to heavily injure you. As he said that, a vast presence radiated from Jianshan. This was the strength of the Holy Emperor at the 3rd heavenly layer. At the same time, the Emperor armament appeared in Jianshan's hand. It shone with a surging black light as a destructive presence swept through the surroundings. It formed a tremendous pressure that enveloped the surroundings, causing the expressions of all the spectators to change drastically. At that moment, everyone, including Taido, looked at Jianshan in a different light. Their gazes were filled with deep fear and disbelief. Jianshan raised the Emperor armament in his right hand, and it immediately began to emit a surging sword chi. He swung his sword several hundred meters away, and the powerful sword chi immediately tore through the air as a black streak of light, shooting toward Taido with lightning-like speed. Taido became extremely stern. He could clearly sense the power of Jianshan's attack. Without any hesitation, he immediately mobilized all the energy in his body, fusing it with the world force to condense a 3-meter-wide circular shield in front of him to block the incoming sword chi. Boom! The shield that Taido had condensed with all his strength shattered when it came in contact with Jianshan's sword chi. However, the sword chi did not slow down at all, continuing toward Taido and passing through his chest. Arg! Taido cried out in pain. He could no longer maintain his levitation and fell from the sky, crashing heavily into the ground. The surrounding people were all stunned by this scene, especially the group of people from the Tai Hong family. Their expressions all became dumbstruck. Taido was the most powerful existence in the Tai Hong clan, yet he had been defeated so easily by a single strike from the ruler of the Turtle Clan. All of them found this unbelievable. The eyes of the experts of the Turtle Clan, the 2nd elder, and the 3rd elder widened as well. They all stared at this scene in disbelief. All of them struggled to accept this. The ancestor of the Tai Hong clan was a 16-star expert, yet he could not even receive a single strike from the ruler of the Turtle Clan. They all felt deeply shocked. Jianshan floated down and arrived before Taido. He asked, "Do you accept your loss?" Taido stood up with great difficulty with a pale face. He looked at Jianshan in fright as deep fear remained in his eyes. He gloomily said, "I've lost. From today onwards, my Tai Hong clan will submit to the Turtle Clan and follow their lead. Come back to the Turtle Clan with me," Jianshan said to Taido before calling everyone back to the Turtle Clan. The news of the ruler of the Turtle Clan defeating the ancestor of the Tai Hong clan spread across the entire Turtle Clan very quickly. It immediately caused the entire clan to rejoice. Joy filled the entire place, but even more people were discussing the ruler's strength. At this moment, Jianshan, all the senior members of the Turtle Clan, and all the people of the Tai Hong clan had gathered in the hall. Jianshan sat on the throne as he glared down. His face was filled with an irresistible dignity. "Taido, please tell everyone just what relationship the 2nd elder and 3rd elder have with your Tai Hong clan, and why the 2 elders have spoken up for you time and time again." Jianshan stared at Taido. The expressions of the 2 elders changed when they heard that. They immediately understood that Jianshan was about to make an example out of them. When they thought about how they had opposed Jianshan in the past, they could not help but begin to regret it. However, it was all too late. The second elder immediately stood up and explained, "Ruler, please do not slander us. That's right, the two of us have indeed done some things that displeased the ruler in the past, and we were only thinking for the sake of the Turtle Clan when it came to the matter of the Tai Hong clan. We had no other intentions because we were not the Tai Hong clan's opponent back then. If we were to fight, we would definitely suffer heavy losses." The second elder is correct. We took the lead in surrendering to the Tai Hong clan before because we were thinking for the sake of the Turtle Clan. We had no other intentions. I hope the ruler can be fair and not wrongly accuse good people. The third elder explained as well. The two of them no longer dare to speak to Jianshun with the same tone as before. They had become much more respectful. Jianshun ignored the two elders and asked Taido, "Taido, tell me what is going on. I hope you're not lying to me, or you should know the consequences." Taido hesitated for a while before standing up from his chair. He clasped his hands at Jianshun. "King, the second and third elders have already been bribed by our Tai Hong clan many years ago. They have already reached an agreement with our Tai Hong clan. Once the Grand Elder of the Turtle Clan dies, they will immediately lead the Turtle Clan to become a part of our Tai Hong clan." What? The second elder and third elder are actually spies. They're traitors to our Turtle Clan. A flurry of discussion immediately rang out in the hall. All the senior members of the Turtle Clan were surprised. "Nonsense. Ruler, don't listen to Taido's lies. He's trying to drive a wedge between us. He wants our Turtle Clan to kill each other. This is Taido's lie. Ruler, don't listen to his one-sided story." The second elder and third elder began to quibble. They refused to admit it no matter what. The two of them knew what kind of punishment awaited them if they were convicted of this crime. The Turtle Clan had existed for many years and possessed a set of strict rules. They clearly recorded the consequences of traitors. Taido took out a beast hide from his space ring and said, "Ruler, this is the agreement our Tai Hong clan signed with the two elders back then. The imprints of the two elders' souls are on it, so it can't be fake." Jianshun extended his hand, and the beast hide immediately flew into his hand. His face immediately sank when he read the contents. He tossed the beast hide to an expert of the Turtle Clan below and said, "Everyone, take a look." The beast hide was passed down one by one. Very soon, all the experts of the Turtle Clan in the hall looked through it. Their faces all became ugly after reading the contents. The faces of the second elder and the third elder turned pale. Their eyes were filled with despair. Chapter 954. At this moment, a saint ruler of the Turtle Clan walked over. He clasped his hands at Jianshun and said, "Ruler, I am the disciplinary elder of the Turtle Clan. The second elder and third elder have colluded with outsiders and have committed the crime of betrayal. Their crimes cannot be forgiven and should be executed." That's right. The second elder and third elder have actually colluded with outsiders in an attempt to harm our Turtle Clan. They have committed an unforgivable crime and should be executed. Voices of agreement immediately rang out in the hall. Many of the senior members of the Turtle Clan furiously spoke. Although the second and third elders were esteemed figures in the Turtle Clan, their actions had infuriated everyone. The second elder and third elder's faces became extremely ugly. They looked at each other and knew that the situation was hopeless. They immediately leapt out of the hall in an attempt to flee. Jianshun suddenly stood up from the throne. The Emperor armament immediately appeared in his hand, and he swung it at the two of them. Sword Chi shot out like a streak of light, breaking through the restraints of space and catching up to the two elders in a single moment. It passed through their heads, wiping out their souls and wiping out the two elders' souls. The two elders were completely wiped out. Do you see that? This is the fate of traitors. Jianshun coldly stood before the throne. He stood with his back straight as he spoke coldly. He glanced past everyone below with a sharp gaze. Anyone who met Jianshun's gaze could not help but lower their heads. "Taido, once you've recovered, immediately return and arrange for the Taion clan to submit to the Turtle Clan," Jianshun quickly ordered. "Yes, ruler," Taido replied with clasped hands. A saint ruler of the Turtle Clan stepped forward. He politely clasped his hands at Jianshen and said, "Ruler, many of the crystal mines that originally belonged to our turtle clan have been taken away by other clans and organizations in the past few years. I hope the ruler can lead our turtle clan to take back the mines." Jianshen nodded slightly. He looked at Tai Do and said, "Tai Do, once you've dealt with the matters of the Tai Hong clan, immediately lead the experts of your clan to my turtle clan. Take back the crystal mine that was stolen from us in the past. If you come across anyone you can't defeat, immediately report to me." "As you wish, ruler," Tai Do replied respectfully. Tai Do replied politely. He had already sworn a blood oath before to serve the Turtle Clan and Jianshan. After dealing with the matters of the Turtle Clan, Jianshan and newbies both entered seclusion. They left the matters of the Turtle Clan to the senior members. A golden tower hovered in the air within a heavily guarded room of the Turtle Clan. Jianshan and newbies were currently organizing the space rings they had collected from the Divine Hall. There were many things in the space rings, and there were even space rings hidden within the space rings. As a result, the number of space rings had increased from around 100 to around 400. Jianshan and newbies worked for over a dozen days before they finished organizing the items in the space rings. Not only had they obtained great wealth from the space rings, but they had also obtained all the items that belonged to the Divine Hall of the Eight Wastelands. They had also completely pieced together the Tian level battle saint technique that had been divided into countless pieces. There is also a personal note that recorded the comprehension of the Eight Wastelands and a few diary entries from the Emperor of the Eight Wastelands, as well as a cultivation method. Jianshan and newbies had read through the diary entries and cultivation comprehensions of the Eight Wastelands. Although it did not increase their strength, they still benefited greatly and widened their horizons. The diary entries left behind by the Emperor of the Eight Wastelands related to his cultivation and breakthroughs after reaching the level of the Holy Emperor. However, his voice was filled with regret. Emperors use origin energy to cultivate, but there is no origin energy in the current world. They can only nurture themselves by absorbing vast amounts of energy of the world, but progress is slow. With the Emperor's 10,000 years of life, it's impossible for them to break through. The four ancient sovereigns will never appear again. Jianshan understood why there was no origin energy in the current world. It was all because of the lunisolar cave on Dragon Island. All the origin energy had been sucked away by the Inyang Saint Rock, leaving nothing behind. As a result, there were so few Holy Emperor-level experts in the current world. From what the Emperor of the Eight Wastelands had said, Jianshan could vaguely guess that all the Holy Emperor-level experts were probably absorbing vast amounts of energy of the world to slowly refine it into origin energy, increasing their strength. However, the rate of progress was extremely slow. With the lifespan of the Holy Emperor, it was impossible for him to reach the peak, let alone break through. In the end, the complete cultivation method was the cultivation method of the Emperor of the Eight Wastelands. However, Jianshan and newbies were unable to cultivate the cultivation method of the sea race, so they could only find Diablo in the end. Diablo was obviously extremely excited after obtaining the cultivation method of the Emperor of the Eight Wastelands. He immediately took the cultivation method and began cultivating it. Although it might not be enough for him to break through to the Holy Emperor level, there were some secret techniques of the sea race in the cultivation method of the Emperor of the Eight Wastelands. His battle prowess would definitely increase drastically if he grasped these secret techniques. Jianshan did not comprehend the Tian level saint technique recorded on the stone tablet because it was only suitable for the sea race. He needed to transform into his original form to use it, so it was not suitable for Jianshan at all. However, newbies began to comprehend it with great interest. His original form was that of a magical beast, so he was extremely close to the requirements to use the Tian level saint technique. He did not seek to grasp the powerful battle skill. Instead, he only sought to comprehend it and use it as a reference to improve himself. Aside from these things, there was also a mountain of crystal coins, a large number of god-tier crystals, high-class monster cores, and so on. Jianshan was able to replenish the resources he had used up after breaking through to the third layer of the chaotic body. Jianshun was overjoyed. If he refined all these things, he might not be able to break through to the fourth layer of the chaotic body, but his chaotic knighting would strengthen by quite a lot at the very least. Jianshun did not kill the surviving Class 8 vicious beasts in the Divine Hall of the 8 Wastelands. Instead, he allowed them to live in the Divine Hall. He planned on making them the protectors of the Divine Hall, so he carved out an area for them to be raised. After dealing with all these matters, Jianshun left the artifact space all by himself. Newbies and Xia Wang remained in the artifact space. One of them comprehended the Tian-level Saint technique, while the other studied the cultivation method of the Emperor of the 8 Wastelands. When Jianshun reappeared in the Turtle Clan, the Taihong clan had officially become a subordinate of the Turtle Clan. Taido had already led a few experts of the Taihong clan to work with the Turtle Clan. They began to take back the crystal mines that had been stolen from them. Jianshun did not stay in the Turtle Clan for long. He left after handing over some matters. He first went to the tomb of the Grand Elder of the Turtle Clan to pay his respects before making his way to the Poseidon Hall. A majestic divine hall hovered in the air at the center of the Poseidon Hall's territory. This was the core of the Poseidon Hall's territory. Countless experts had gathered there. Jianshun entered the Divine Hall without any obstructions with his guest Elder Medallion. He found the Hall Elder Hong, and after exchanging a few pleasantries with him, he cut straight to the chase. He said, "Elder Hong, I want to see the Hall Master. I hope you can pass on the message." Elder Hong fell silent. He did not ask for the reason and said, "All right, I'll ask His Majesty." With that, Elder Hong slowly closed his eyes. Jianshun calmly sat across from Elder Hong and waited quietly. His expression did not change at all. A while later, Elder Hong slowly opened his eyes and said to Jianshun, "His Majesty has agreed. Come with me. I'll take you there." Chapter 955. Jianshun followed Elder Hong into the depths of the Divine Hall. In the end, they arrived at a majestic hall and directly entered through the door. The interior of the palace was bright and grand, but the huge palace was empty, without a single person in sight. Jianshun and Elder Hong stopped in the center of the hall. Elder Hong said to Jianshun, "Jianshun, wait here." "Yes, Elder Hong," Jianshun replied and looked around curiously. Elder Hong retreated, and the heavy door of the hall closed once again. Instantly, the hall fell into a deathly silence. Jianshun stood in the hall and waited by himself. He was composed, without any worry at all. A while later, Jianshun's eyes suddenly narrowed. He suddenly looked up and saw that a woman had appeared on the empty throne. She had arrived so suddenly that Jianshun had failed to sense her at all. The woman seemed to be in her 20s. She was extremely beautiful, to the point where even the words devastatingly beautiful were insufficient to describe her beauty. She was so beautiful that it was suffocating. She was so beautiful that all men in the world would go crazy for her. Her beauty was like a flower fairy from the heavens. She was sacred, noble, and inviolable. It was impossible for her to appear in this world. The woman wore a dark blue dress. Her dark green hair flickered with a faint blue light, cascading down like a waterfall and draping over her shoulders in an extremely natural manner. She currently sat on the throne as she stared at Jianshun with her enchanting eyes. Even with Jianshun's mental fortitude, he could not help but become dazed when he saw the woman's appearance. Probably only the heavenly enchantress could rival her beauty out of all the women he had seen before. Is this the face of the Hall Master of the Poseidon Hall? Jianshun thought. This was the first time he had seen the beauty of a holy emperor. Jianshun returned to his senses very soon. He immediately clasped his hands at the woman politely and said, "Jianshun greets the Hall Master." "Jianshun, why have you come looking for me?" the Hall Master of the Poseidon Hall asked. Her gentle and lively voice was filled with emotionless indifference. She did not show any emotion at all. Her gaze toward Jianshun was as calm as a well, like a pool of stagnant water. "Hall Master, I want to pay a visit to the Serpent God Hall and the Heaven Spirit Hall. To take revenge for what was stolen back then, said Jinshin. The Hall Master of the Poseidon Hall, after a moment of thought. You want me to help you keep the Hall Masters of the other halls busy? Correct. That's exactly what I want. I hope the Hall Master can assist me, said Jinshin. He needed to keep the Holy Emperor busy before he went to the Serpent God Hall and the Heaven Spirit Hall. Otherwise, even with the protection of the 8 Wastelands Divine Hall and the Saint Artifact, he would probably be done for. This was because the Holy Emperor could already destroy the Saint Artifacts and the 8 Wastelands Divine Hall. The Hall Master of the Poseidon Hall hesitated for a while before saying, "The people of our 3 halls cannot cross our territory without permission, but you are only a guest of my hall, not a member of my hall. As a result, you can freely enter the territories of the Heaven's Spirit Hall and the Serpent God Hall. When you go, challenge your past enemies in the name of revenge. It's best if you don't provoke the dignity of the other 2 halls, just in case their hall elders take action. I will keep the Hall Masters of the 2 halls busy for you. Go." "Thank you, Your Highness." Jianshun beamed as he clasped his hands in thanks. With the Hall Master of the Poseidon Hall secretly keeping them busy, there was nothing for him to worry about. At this moment, the azure-clothed Qing Yishuan sat on a bed and cultivated in a side hall of the Poseidon Hall. At this moment, her expression changed, and she slowly opened her eyes. With a thought, she dispersed the barrier around the hall and said indifferently, "Come in." Very soon, a young man dressed in the attire of the emissary of the Poseidon Hall walked in politely. He clasped his hands at Qing Yishuan and said, "Esteemed Senior Qing Yishuan, the person you wanted me to keep an eye on has appeared. He has just arrived in the Divine Hall and is making his way towards the core of the hall." A gleam of light flashed through Qing Yishuan's eyes. Her alluring face immediately became frosty. She said, "I understand. You can leave." "Yes, Senior," the temple emissary replied respectfully and slowly retreated. After the emissary left, Qing Yishuan stood up from the bed. Qing Yishuan also stood up from the bed. She gritted her teeth and said, "I didn't expect you to actually not die in the 8 Desolation Divine Hall. Although the 8 Desolation map fragment is gone, I, Qing Yishuan, will take back the humiliation you gave me back then no matter what. Now that you don't have that old turtle by your side, I like to see who can protect you. Once I capture you, I will definitely torture you properly to vent my anger." With that, Qing Yishuan directly left the hall. Jianshun left the hall where he had met the Hall Master of the Poseidon Hall. Afterwards, he went to Elder Hong's place and sat for a while before leaving in a hurry. He directly flew towards the territory of the Serpent God Hall. Jianshun flew through the air against the fierce wind. Very soon, he was several tens of thousand kilometers away from the Divine Hall and arrived above a barren mountain range. Jianshun stopped above a towering mountain range. He stood at the very top as a teasing smile appeared on his lips. "Senior Qing Yishuan, may I ask how long you plan on following me?" With that, a heavy killing intent suddenly appeared, filling the air. A sword that flickered with a faint azure light suddenly appeared behind Jianshun, stabbing toward Jianshun with lightning-like speed. Jianshun gently snorted. Without even turning around, the Emperor armament immediately appeared in his hand. He directly swung it behind him. Ding! With a gentle sound, the sword behind him was knocked off course by the Emperor armament, piercing past Jianshun's side. An Emperor armament. That's an Emperor armament. No, that's impossible. How do you have an Emperor armament? A voice filled with shock rang out from behind Jianshun. Qing Yishuan appeared in the air in azure clothes. Her mouth was agape as she stared at the Emperor armament in Jianshun's hand in disbelief. Jianshun slowly turned around and said, "Senior Qing Yishuan, I'm no longer the person you can bully in the past. My strength has skyrocketed now, and I have an Emperor armament. You're no longer my opponent." Qing Yishuan became stern. She stared at Jianshun with both envy and jealousy. She gritted her teeth. "Damned brat, I never thought you'd be so lucky to have an Emperor armament. You must have obtained the Emperor armament from the Divine Hall of the 8 Wastelands." Jianshun casually swung the Emperor armament and smiled. "That's right. The Emperor armament did indeed come from the Divine Hall of the 8 Wastelands. I still have to thank Senior Qing Yishuan for the incomplete map of the 8 wastelands. If it weren't for it, it would have been impossible for me to enter the divine hall of the 8 wastelands, let alone obtain the Emperor armament. With that, Qing Yishuan immediately thought of how she had been robbed of the incomplete map of the 8 wastelands. Her eyes immediately burned with fury as she glared at Jianshan viciously. Her gaze was basically tempting to eat Jianshan's flesh and drink Jianshan's blood. Qing Yishuan's expression also made Jianshan think back to when he had stolen the incomplete map of the 8 wastelands from her. A sliver of awkwardness immediately appeared on his face. He smiled faintly. Senior Qing Yishuan, I've offended you back then. I will definitely make it up to you in the future. I still have matters to attend to today, so I won't keep you company. I hope you won't follow me anymore. With that, Jianshan turned around and flew off, continuing on his way. Qing Yishuan hovered in the air with a pale white face. Her chest heaved violently from anger as she ground her teeth together. Her hatred for Jianshan had reached its limit, but she had nowhere to vent it, so she was furious. This was because she knew from the strike earlier that she was no longer Jianshan's opponent. The current Jianshan was no longer the weakling she had chased all over the place. Ark! Qing Yishuan roared at the sky. The surging sound reverberated through the surroundings like thunder, causing the sky to rumble. At that moment, she could only use her roar to vent the grievances in her heart. In an ancient forest on the Tianyuan continent, Huang Wan sat in the center of the underground room of the Huanggu clan. She constantly observed her surroundings as she became doubtful and surprised. I've already sensed that there's something wrong with the cultivation method Master gave me. I've already sent a message to the ancestor many days ago, so why hasn't the ancestor come get me? Huang Wan thought as worry and anxiety filled her face. At this moment, the door to the room suddenly opened. The ancestor of the Huanggu clan walked in. Greetings, Master. Huang Wan immediately stood up and bowed to the ancestor of the Huanggu clan. A gleam of light flickered through the ancestor's eyes. He studied Huang Wan carefully before smiling. Disciple, may I ask where you have progressed with the cultivation method I gave you? Master, it's been a very long time since I've been home. I've been thinking about my family these past few days, so I'm unable to calm down and cultivate. I beg Master to let me go home and visit my parents, Huang Wan pleaded. The ancestor's eyes turned cold with that, but he concealed it very quickly. He continued to smile. Disciple, this is an extremely crucial moment for you. You must calm down and cultivate. You can't worry about anything else, or it'll definitely affect your future accomplishments. It's best if you cultivate peacefully here. Once you reach a high level with the cultivation method I gave you, I'll obviously let you go home. Huang Wan's heart sank slightly. After a moment of hesitation, she clenched her teeth. Master, if I can't go home, I definitely won't continue cultivating. How dare you disobey your master? The ancestor of the Huanggu clan suddenly yelled with a sunken face. Even his gaze became piercing. Huang Wan gently bit her lip and remained silent. She was only a heaven saint master right now, while the ancestor was a saint ruler. She had no power to resist at all. The ancestor stared at the silent Huang Wan with a sunken face. The light in his eyes flickered as he thought, looks like this girl has probably noticed something. The ancestor of the Huanggu clan left the secret room, but he returned very soon. He held a person in his hand. It was a pale-faced old man. He was currently bound by a thick chain. Huang Wan immediately paled in fright when she saw the bound old man. She cried out, Ancestor! The old man who was chained up was the Huang family's leader, Huang Tianba. Chapter 956. Great-grandfather, great-grandfather. Huang Wan threw herself before Huang Tianba and cried out in panic. Her voice was filled with fear as tears poured out of her eyes like a fountain. Huang Tianba slowly opened his eyes. His gaze was dim and lifeless, and his face was filled with unconcealable weakness. Wanner, it's all great-grandfather's fault. I shouldn't have agreed to let you become this bastard's disciple, Huang Tianba said weakly. His face was filled with anger. Great-grandfather, Huang Wan sobbed. She had never thought that the ancestor of the Huang family would actually be captured by the ancestor of the Huanggu clan. With that, not only would the relationship between the two clans be completely severed, but the two of them would not be able to leave this place. The ancestor of the Huang family raised his head with difficulty and glared at the ancestor of the Huanggu clan viciously. He gritted his teeth. "Bastard, to think that I trusted you so much and treated your Huanggu clan as a family friend. I never thought you'd do something like this. Just what secrets do you have for imprisoning us here?" Several days ago, Huang Tianba had received a message from Huang Wan. As he did not know about Huang Wan's current situation, he had hurried over from the Huang family without any preparations to see her. However, he had never thought that the ancestor of the Huanggu clan would launch a sneak attack while he was unprepared, heavily injuring him and imprisoning him. The ancestor used a secret technique to seal his strength, reducing him to the level of an ordinary person. Even now, the ancestor of the Huang family had no idea why the ancestor of the Huanggu clan would treat him like this. The ancestor of the Huanggu clan sneered. "Huang Tianba, there's no need for you to know about this. Just stay in the Huanggu clan for now. I won't mistreat you." "Bastard, my family's Wan has a close relationship with Jianshan. Furthermore, my Huang family has close ties with the influential figures in Chanyang Prefecture. The Chanyang Prefecture will definitely not let you go," Huang Tianba shouted sternly. The ancestor of the Huanggu clan sneered. "Huang Tianba, don't think I don't know that the relationship between your Huang family and Chanyang Prefecture is completely built on Jianshan. Now that Jianshan isn't here, Chanyang Prefecture won't care about your Huang family. Moreover, how is it possible for the Chanyang clan to know about what happened here? Huang Tianba, you better give up on this idea. Bastard, you won't have a good ending," Huang Tianba roared. A cold light flashed through the eyes of the ancestor of the Huanggu clan. He coldly said, "Humph, Huang Tianba, that's enough." With that, the ancestor of the Huanggu clan slammed his hand into Huang Tianba's back, causing him to vomit blood. He became even more haggard. "Don't hurt great-grandfather!" Huang Wan let out a hysterical cry. Looking at Huang Tianba's dispirited expression, she felt a sharp pain in her heart. The ancestor of the Huanggu clan stared at Huang Wan with a sinister smile. He sneered, "My good disciple, your great-grandfather's life is in your hands now. If you want your great-grandfather to be safe, you better properly cultivate the cultivation method I passed on to you." With that, the ancestor of the Huanggu clan left the secret room and trapped Huang Wan in there again. Huang Wan knelt on the ground and sobbed. Her only hope had originally been the ancestor of the Huang family, but now that Huang Tianba had been captured, she had lost everything she could rely on. Now that she was trapped in the dark room and completely cut off from the outside world, Huang Wan felt like the sky was about to collapse. She felt so helpless. "Jianshan, where are you right now?" Huang Wan sobbed softly. She could not help but think of Jianshan in this despairing situation. Jianshan was the only person who had close ties with the Huang family and could fend off the Huanggu clan. No one in the outside world knew about what had happened in the Huanggu clan. Even the Huang family had no idea, because no one in the Huang family knew about the ancestor's departure. As for the Chanyang Prefecture and Lore City, they had never thought that the ancestor of the Huang family would end up in such a dangerous situation. Jianshan had already entered the territory of the Serpent God Hall in the Sea Realm. His tremendous presence whistled through the sky, directly passing over countless clans and organizations. He alarmed countless people along the way. However, no one came looking for trouble with his current strength. Even those who were more powerful than him did not want to offend such a powerful enemy over such a small matter and cause endless trouble for their clans. Although there were many more experts of various levels of cultivation in the Sea Realm than on the Tianyuan continent, a holy emperor was enough to move through the Sea Realm unhindered. Jianshan flew over the territory of the Serpent God Hall in a flashy manner. He aggressively made his way to the core of the Serpent God Hall's authority. After 2 days of traveling, he finally arrived at the huge Divine Hall at the very center of the territory. The Divine Hall was pitch black, hovering in the air like a huge fortress. It was engraved with images of serpent dragons. They either roared at the sky or brandished their claws. They were of various shapes and sizes, and they were all extremely lifelike, as if they were living creatures. At the top of the divine hall, there was a huge black serpent that was tens of thousands of feet long. It was like a king that looked down on the world. It gave off a vast and mighty aura, giving off the feeling that it was the only supreme being in this world. Jinshin hovered above the divine hall with his arms crossed. A tremendous presence radiated from him, forming wave after wave that constantly slammed into the majestic divine hall. Although this was unable to harm the divine hall at all, it was filled with a strong provocation. How dare you? Who is bold enough to act so insolently before my serpent god hall? A thunderous bellow immediately rang out from the divine hall. Several saint ruler emissaries flew out furiously. A cold light flashed through Jinshin's eyes. When the emissaries had completely left the divine hall, he flipped his right hand, and the emperor armament appeared in his hand. He directly swung it at the emissaries. A huge crescent-shaped sword chi shot out, bringing with it devastating ripples of energy as it shot towards the emissaries. In the end, it slashed through their chests, cleaving them in half. A few divine palace emissaries let out blood-curdling screams as they fell from the sky, accompanied by a large amount of blood. However, Jinshin's sword chi did not slow down at all. It continued on its way, striking the huge divine hall of the Serpent God Hall heavily. It erupted with a heavy boom, causing the entire hall to tremble gently. This immediately alarmed all the experts in the Serpent God Hall. Immediately, countless vast presences flooded out from the divine hall. Several dozen figures rose into the air from various directions, flying out of the divine hall with lightning-like speed. These people were all elders of the Serpent God Hall. Basically, most of the holy emperor experts in the territory of the Serpent God Hall had gathered here. There were even more emissaries behind them. In the blink of an eye, a large group of people had gathered around Jinshin. Other than the several dozen holy emperor experts, there were several hundred emissaries as well. The several hundred people formed a circle surrounding Jinshin. Vast and tremendous presences radiated from them, forming an impenetrable net in the air, firmly enveloping Jinshin. Who are you? State your name. How dare you injure the emissaries of the Serpent God Hall and attack the Supreme Divine Hall? Are you tired of living, you bastard? Do you want to die? How dare you behave so atrociously in front of the Supreme Divine Hall of the Serpent God Hall? Countless curses rang out in the surroundings. All of them stared at Jinshin coldly as killing intent filled their eyes. However, even more of their gazes were focused on the Emperor armament in Jinshin's hand. A sharp light flashed through Jinshin's eyes. With a jolt of his arm, he pointed his sword at the sky, and the Emperor armament immediately surged with a black light. A destructive presence enveloped a radius of several dozen kilometers. He yelled out, "If anyone dares to say another word, don't blame me for being merciless." Silence! Silence! The noisy crowd immediately fell silent. In a single moment, the entire place fell silent. Everyone stared at Jinshin blankly, while quite a few of them stared at Jinshin in a daze. They were not frightened by Jinshin. Instead, they were stunned by Jinshin. In all these years, no one had ever dared to say such arrogant words in front of so many people in the Sea Realm, much less challenge the dignity of the Serpent God Hall alone. Jinshin was the first. Ignorant brat, you actually overestimate yourself and challenge the dignity of our Serpent God Hall. Let me see just what you're capable of, a white-haired old man growled. A white-haired old man called out. He immediately flew towards Jinshin with a trident in his hand. Jinshin glanced at the old man, and a sliver of disdain appeared on his lips. He sneered. The Holy Emperor is at the fifth heavenly layer. You don't have the right. Jinshin suddenly stabbed out with the Emperor armament in his hand. Immediately, a huge sword chi shot toward the old man with lightning speed as it shone with a black light. The clash between the two erupted with a great boom. It was like a bolt from the blue, reverberating across a radius of 100 kilometers. The old man let out a muffled groan and spat out a mouthful of blood. His body flew back at an even faster speed than when he came. In the end, he slammed into the temple behind him and stopped. Immediately, he could not help but spit out another mouthful of blood. His face had already turned pale. The people in the surroundings were in an uproar. Their gazes toward Jianshan all changed. A 16-star expert had been blown away while vomiting blood in a single clash. They were all shocked by this strength. The hall elders have arrived. A loud voice rang out from the divine hall. 6 people of various ages slowly flew out from the divine hall. They did not give off any presences at all, just like ordinary people. Jianshan's eyes narrowed. He immediately looked over and discovered that he had actually seen 2 of the 6 people before. They were the 2 hall elders who had led the people of the Serpent God Hall in search of the 8 wastelands. Chapter 9:57. Greetings to the hall elders. The envoys gathered in the surroundings bowed to the 6 hall elders. Their faces were filled with respect and admiration. The 15-star and 16-star elders made way for the 6 temple elders. The 6 hall elders flew over from afar with sunken faces. They glared at Jianshan. 2 of them recognized Jianshan with a single glance, and heavy killing intent filled their eyes. Jianshan, I never thought it would actually be you. Humph. Our Serpent God Hall didn't go looking for you personally, yet you've actually delivered yourself to us today. Do you really think you can contend against our Serpent God Hall with just an Emperor armament? An elder coldly asked. The eyes of the other hall elders narrowed when they heard Jianshan's name. They studied Jianshan, and one of them said with a heavy voice, So you're Jianshan, the person who stole the treasure of our Serpent God Hall and obtained the 8 Wastelands Divine Hall. Jianshan, do you think you can act recklessly in our Serpent God Hall just because you obtained the 8 Wastelands Divine Hall? Do you think we won't smash your damn Divine Hall today? A hall elder with a rather bad temper bellowed. His eyes shone with a vicious light. As soon as they heard that the person before them was the person who obtained the 8 Wastelands Divine Hall, the surrounding elders who had seen Jianshan for the first time all became surprised. Their gazes were filled with undisguised envy and jealousy. Jianshan hovered in the air calmly as he faced off against the people of the Serpent God Hall. Even though he was surrounded, he did not seem nervous at all. Esteemed hall elders, you're exaggerating. I have not come to challenge the dignity of the Serpent God Hall. No matter how conceited I am, I will never believe that I have the strength to fend off the Serpent God Hall alone. Jianshan clasped his hands and smiled. How dare you say you're not here to challenge the dignity of my Serpent God Hall? You injured the emissary of my Serpent God Hall first before injuring an elder of my Serpent God Hall. Do you really think my Serpent God Hall is a pushover? Don't think you can look down on us just because you have the 8 Wastelands Divine Hall. A hall elder of the Serpent God Hall yelled out viciously. The people of the Serpent God Hall are obviously not to be trifled with, but I'm not to be trifled with either. They asked for it when I injured them earlier. They can't blame anyone else. Jianshan smiled faintly. What a nice asking for it. Jianshan, let's show old man just how capable you are. A cold gleam of light immediately flashed through the eyes of the hot-tempered hall elder, Charlie. He was about to attack Jianshan. Jianshan continued to smile faintly. His smile was rather sinister and cold. Suddenly, a huge divine hall appeared in the sky. It was majestic and gave off a tremendous pressure, blotting out the entire sky. The 8 Wastelands Divine Hall. A series of cries immediately rang out in the surroundings. The several dozen envoys and elders of the Serpent God Hall looked at the Divine Hall with burning desire. Their desire to possess the Divine Hall was so great that they almost lost their minds. Jianshan immediately flew into the Divine Hall of the 8 Wastelands. He fused with the Divine Hall, fusing with it. At that moment, he was the Divine Hall, and the Divine Hall was him. He could use the great power within the Divine Hall as he wished. Charlie immediately calmed down in a corner of the Divine Hall of the 8 Wastelands. He stared at the Divine Hall of the 8 Wastelands in the sky, sternly. Esteemed hall elders, Are you bold enough to fight me in the Divine Hall? Jinshin's voice rang out from the Divine Hall of the Eight Wastelands. His voice was so loud that it reached a radius of several hundred kilometers, reverberating through the surroundings. Jinshin did not fear the Hall Elders at all in the Divine Hall. Although the Hall Master of the Hall, Poseidon, had warned him not to offend the Hall Elders of the Serpent God Hall, Jinshin had been forced into such a horrible state by them in the past. Now that the opportunity had presented itself, how could he not take revenge? Jinshin had already made up his mind before he had come. He definitely would not let the Hall Elders of the Serpent God Hall have a good time. Even if he could not injure them, he would humiliate them completely and leave them with no way out. The 6 Hall Elders all paled in anger when they heard Jinshin's arrogant words. Their chests burned with anger, but none of them dared to fight Jinshin in the Divine Hall of the Eight Wastelands. Even the impulsive Charlie did not dare to step forward. If they really did end up in the Divine Hall, only death would await them, even if they were the peak of the Holy Emperor's strength. This was because once they entered the Divine Hall, they would no longer be facing Jinshin, who was at the 7th heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor. Instead, they would be facing an expert at the level of an emperor. 6 respected elders of the Divine Palace, do you dare to fight me? Jinshin's voice rang out from the Divine Hall again. He could not help but think about how he and newbies had been forced to flee miserably by the experts of the Serpent God Hall in the past, almost losing their lives. Back then, if he had not been saved by the experts of the Poseidon Hall in the final moment, he probably would have become a prisoner of the Serpent God Hall and Heaven's Spirit Hall long ago. He would not have been able to enjoy such glory. Jinshin, you're far too arrogant, a Hall Elder scolded in exasperation. Normally, they stood high above everyone else. They could decide someone's life and death with a wave of their hand. So how could they endure such humiliation? Moreover, the person who insulted them was an ant that they had never taken seriously a few years ago. Let's work together and attack the Divine Hall together. We'll destroy this damn Divine Hall together. Charlie was infuriated as well. Powerful energy had already surged around him. The 6 Hall Elders struck out together, attacking the Divine Hall of the 8 Wastelands in the sky with their full strength. Immediately, terrifying ripples of energy formed a violent storm that wreaked havoc in the surroundings. The Divine Hall of the 8 Wastelands immediately began to violently shake after being attacked by the 6 of them. Although the combined attacks of the 6 Hall Elders were unable to destroy the Divine Hall, it was enough to shake it up. The Divine Hall of the 8 Wastelands suddenly expanded, going from several thousand meters to 100,000 meters in the blink of an eye. Its huge base was like a dark cloud, blotting out the sun above everyone's heads. Afterward, it fell from the sky with a tremendous presence, viciously smashing down on everyone below. Other than the 6 Hall Elders, there were several dozen elders with the strength of the Holy Emperor and several hundred emissaries who were enveloped by the Divine Hall. The emissaries' strength ranged from Heaven Saint Masters to Saint Rulers. All of them fled into the distance. However, the Divine Hall fell extremely quickly. They could not escape at all. The cold and heavy base of the Divine Hall came into contact with their bodies very quickly, pushing them down from the sky and toward the ground. Hold up! A Hall Elder bellowed out. He supported the base of the Divine Hall with both hands in an attempt to stop the Divine Hall from falling. Unfortunately, the Divine Hall was extremely heavy. It was thousands of times heavier than a mountain. They were unable to stop the Divine Hall from falling even when they worked together. Boom! With a heavy rumble, the huge base of the Divine Hall of the 8 Wastelands heavily smashed into the ground above everyone's heads. At that moment, the entire world seemed to shake. The ground in a radius of several thousand kilometers shook violently as if an earthquake had occurred. The huge Divine Hall of the 8 Wastelands had already been smashed deeply into the ground. Half of the 300-meter-tall Divine Hall had already sunk into the ground, creating a deep pit. The 6 Hall Elders, the many elders of the Serpent God Hall, and the emissaries all sank into the ground. Jinshin, don't even think about leaving my Serpent God Hall today. A great roar rang out from afar. The voice was filled with fury. The 6 hall elders of the Serpent God Hall had blasted a tunnel out of the ground. They broke out of the ground and flew over from afar. Behind them were a few elders with the strength of the Holy Emperor. Aside from a few of them who were in a rather horrible shape, none of them were injured at all. However, the emissaries who were Heaven's Saint Masters and Saint Rulers were injured to varying degrees. Rumble. The Octatura Divine Hall trembled gently with half of its body buried in the ground. It slowly rose into the air and faced the huge Divine Hall of the Serpent God Hall from afar. It seemed like it was going to be a showdown between the 2 Divine Halls. What bold words. If I want to leave, you won't be able to stop me unless your Hall Master personally takes action. Jinshin's voice rang out from the Divine Hall of the 8 Wastelands. His voice was filled with great confidence. The 6 hall elders hovered in the distance. They looked at each other before gritting their teeth and dropping to one knee at the same time. They called out, "I beg the Hall Master to personally take action and punish the person who dares to challenge the dignity of our Serpent God Hall." Jinshin had the protection of the Divine Hall of the 8 Wastelands. The 6 hall elders were unable to do anything to him once he hid in the Divine Hall. A while later, the expressions of the 6 hall elders all changed. Shock filled their eyes, and they immediately stood up. They glared at the Divine Hall of the 8 Wastelands with sunken faces. "Jinshin, no wonder you dare to challenge our Serpent God Hall alone. So you've actually convinced Hall Master Poseidon to keep our Hall Master of Dragon God Temple busy," an elder said with a heavy voice. Jinshin knew that the Hall Master Poseidon and the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple were probably secretly clashing with each other when he heard that. He immediately rejoiced and sighed. "Whatever. Jinshin, you've won. Tell me, what will it take for you to stop today?" The Hall Elder of the Serpent God Hall finally admitted defeat. Even though he was filled with reluctance, there was nothing he could do. "My requests are very simple. Firstly, the 4 divine generals of your Serpent God Hall stole something from me in the past. I want that item back now. Secondly, I want to fight the 4 divine generals to the death. No one else is allowed to interfere," Jinshan said. The 6 hall elders hesitated slightly before nodding in the end. Thirdly, 3 people entered the territory of the Hall Poseidon to ambush me in the past. They're called Li Fengxing, Zhou Tianzi, and Zhou Yunzi. I want you to hand them over, Jinshin said. The expressions of the 6 hall elders became rather ugly. They looked at one another and compromised in the end. The only person who could break through the 8 wastelands was the Hall Master, but the Hall Master was busy with the Emperor Poseidon, so he was unable to do anything. With their strength, they were unable to do anything to Jinshin at all. If the stalemate continued, it would only make the Serpent God Hall look even worse. The matter at hand was to send this vengeful demon away as soon as possible. All right, we agree. We'll hand Li Fengxing over to you. However, Zhou Tianzi and Zhou Yunzi are not part of the Serpent God Hall. If you want them, you'll have to go to the Heaven's Spirit Hall, said a hall elder. Chapter 958. Men, go and call the 4 divine generals and Li Fengxing out. A divine palace elder ordered loudly. Immediately, a hall elder flew into the divine hall in a horrible shape and went to call for the 4 divine generals and Li Fengxing. Very soon, 5 powerful presences radiated from the divine hall. The 4 divine generals who had hunted down Jinshin a few years ago flew out of the divine hall with Li Fengxing and the others. The 2 divine generals captured by the first divine hall elder of the Poseidon Hall, Atlantis, had already been exchanged for by the Serpent God Hall for a large sum of money. Jinshin's eyes immediately became filled with intense killing intent when he saw his former enemies. He glared at the 5 of them, the 4 divine generals of the Serpent God Hall, and Li Fengxing clearly knew what had happened. Their faces became very ugly as they became rather stern. Greetings, hall elders. The 4 divine generals and Li Fengxing clasped their hands at the 6 hall elders. 4 divine generals, Li Fengxing, Warrior Jian Chun wants to challenge you. You can accept the challenge on behalf of our Serpent God Hall. A hall elder sighed gently. The 4 divine generals and Li Fengxing all looked at the huge divine hall of the 8 wastelands. They were all filled with bitterness. Although they had always stayed in the Divine Hall, they knew exactly what had happened outside. They knew the whole story. However, what they struggled to accept was that Jinshan, who could not fight back at all a few years ago, had actually become so terrifying. With the might of the 8 wastelands Divine Hall, even 6 powerful hall elders could not do anything to him. Jinshan appeared at the entrance of the Divine Hall of the 8 wastelands. He said to the 6 hall elders, "I hope none of you will interfere in my battle with them. Otherwise, I, Jinshan, will never let this matter go. I will definitely turn your Serpent God Hall upside down. Of course, don't worry. Other than the 4 divine generals and Li Fengxing, no one in our Serpent God Hall can touch you," said a hall elder with a gloomy face. Their Serpent God Hall had been utterly humiliated by what had happened today. Jinshan floated down from the Divine Hall with the Emperor armament in hand. He did not withdraw the huge Divine Hall of the 8 wastelands. Instead, it hovered high above everyone's heads like a dark cloud, causing the surroundings to suddenly darken. 4 divine generals, is the item you stole from me in the past still here? Jinshan stared at the 4 divine generals coldly. One of the divine generals took off his clothes, revealing the armor that flickered with a faint golden light. He coldly said, "It's on me. Come, and take it if you have the ability." He had already put on the armor he had stolen from Jinshan back then. Jinshan's eyes became even colder. He coldly said, "You don't have the right to wear the armor. I'll take it back in the same way you stole it from me back then. All 5 of you can come at me together." Li Fengxing could not help but laugh aloud when he saw how Jinshan actually wanted to challenge all 5 of them. He said, "All right, Jinshan, you said it yourself. I hope you don't return." With that, Li Fengxing looked at the 4 divine generals beside him. He sneered, "For divine generals, let's go together. We'll definitely teach this ignorant brat a vicious lesson." The 4 divine generals all sneered, but they secretly rejoiced inside. They all knew that Jinshan was powerful and that it would be difficult for them to defeat him alone. However, Jinshan had actually arrogantly challenged all 5 of them together, so they were filled with confidence. Li Fengxing's strength had already reached the 6th heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor. He was the strongest magical beast in the Sea Realm, so his battle prowess was extremely great. The 4 divine generals of the Serpent God Hall were all at the 5th heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor, and they were skilled in teamwork. They had worked together for many years, so they had already reached a tacit understanding when they fought. With the 5 of them working together, they could even put up a fight against the peak 7th heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor. The 4 divine generals and Li Fengxing were originally beasts, so their most powerful weapons were their claws. Their hands immediately became the claws of a serpent dragon and the paws of a bear covered in black fur. As they swung their claws, they produced a string of powerful energy that shot toward Jinshan. Jinshan swung the Emperor armament in his hand, and a huge crescent-shaped sword chi shot out with lightning speed, dispersing the powerful energy from the 5 of them. Attacks of this level can't injure me at all. Is this all that the mighty 4 divine generals of the Serpent God Hall and 5 magical beasts have? Jinshan coldly asked. A gleam of light flashed through the eyes of the 4 divine generals and Li Fengxing. They bellowed out together, and vast energy surged out from their bodies, coiling around them. It gradually formed 4 serpent dragons that were 300 meters long and a gigantic black bear. Roar! The black bear produced a deafening roar at the sky. It strode through the air and aggressively charged toward Jinshan. The 4 giant serpents, completely condensed from energy above the 4 divine generals, also roared at the sky. Soon after, the 4 serpents actually began to slowly fuse together. The huge black bear was also condensed from tremendous energy and world force. It ran extremely quickly, arriving before Jinshan in the blink of an eye. The Emperor armament in Jinshan's hand shone with a surging black light. He was emotionless and cold as he directly swung his sword at the charging black bear. However, before his sword chi could strike the black bear, it suddenly exploded in the air, producing a deafening boom. A terrifying storm of energy erupted, wreaking havoc in the surroundings. The impact caused the surrounding space to constantly distort, blurring one's vision. Jinshin swayed as he was constantly pushed back by the violent shock waves of energy. This was the result of Li Fengxing's full-powered attack. Jinshin was in the air and had nowhere to rely on, so he was unable to block it. At this moment, a figure shot toward Jinshin with lightning-like speed from the center of the explosion. A pair of thick bare paws grabbed at Jinshin's throat and head with powerful shockwaves of energy. It was Li Fengxing. Jinshin sneered. In that critical moment, the Emperor armament in his hand stabbed toward Li Fengxing as a black streak of light. Li Fengxing bellowed out. His hands that had originally grabbed at Jinshin's throat and head changed to the Emperor armament. His hands were covered in a layer of powerful energy. He wanted to use this opportunity to steal the Emperor armament from Jinshin's hand. However, how could the Emperor armament in Jinshin's hand be taken away so easily? When the Emperor armament collided with Li Fengxing's hands, it actually produced a metallic screech. The powerful energy from the Emperor armament caused Li Fengxing's hands to become numb. Swish! Before Li Fengxing could react, Jinshin's second attack arrived. The Emperor armament flashed through Li Fengxing's hands as a black streak of light, chopping off Li Fengxing's huge paws. Ark! Li Fengxing cried out miserably. He used his arms to wrap around his severed hands before quickly retreating. Just when Jinshin wanted to pursue, a deafening roar rang out. The 4 serpent dragons condensed by the 4 divine generals had completely fused together, forming a black serpent over 30,000 meters long. It aggressively charged toward Jinshin with a tremendous presence. This was a secret technique used by the 4 divine generals of the Serpent God Hall. The tremendous energy and might hidden within the black dragon could even heavily injure a 6th heavenly layer, Holy Emperor. Its power was enough to make a 7th heavenly layer, Holy Emperor, take it seriously. Jinshin remained emotionless. His face did not change at all. He had used the Emperor armament as hard as he could, so his battle prowess had already reached the peak of the 7th heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor. He was infinitely close to the 8th heavenly layer. The black dragon was powerful, but it was not enough for him to treat it with any importance. Jinshin raised the Emperor armament high in the air and swung it as hard as he could. A huge SwordChaos shot toward the serpent dragon as a black streak of light, colliding violently with it in the air. With a great boom, violent ripples of energy wreaked havoc in the surroundings, causing the surroundings to dim. The clash this time was enough to destroy the surroundings, causing the water in the sky to churn violently. Great waves were created on the surface of the sea. The SwordChaos and the black serpent dragon swelled in the air before dispersing together in the end. The 4 divine generals of the Serpent God Hall became even more stern. Their combined attack had actually been nullified by Jinshin so easily, which made them feel that something was off. Their opponent's strength had completely exceeded their expectations. Jinshin used the illusory flash and arrived before the 4 divine generals in the blink of an eye as a blur. With a sudden jerk of his arm, the Emperor armament immediately turned into a blur that enveloped the 4 of them. He stabbed at the 4 divine generals again and again. The 4 divine generals were covered in a layer of fine scales. Their claws had become the claws of serpents. Their sharp claws were wrapped in a layer of powerful and dense energy as they used all their strength to block Jinshin's attacks. However, it was impossible for them to be Jinshin's opponent now that Jinshin had closed in on them. Every single stab from Jinshin possessed the might of the 7th heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor. They managed to block it for 2 rounds before they were powerless. Their sharp claws were cut off by Jinshin one by one, causing them to constantly groan from the intense pain. After the claws of the 4 divine generals were all severed, the Emperor armament constantly swept past them, leaving behind vicious slashes on their bodies. Chapter 959. The 4 divine generals of the Serpent God Hall were covered in wounds. They were dyed red from head to toe, becoming bloody figures. They were in an extremely horrible shape. The experts of the Serpent God Hall and the surroundings were deeply shocked. Not only did Jianshan have the protection of the 8 Wastelands Divine Hall, but he was also so powerful. He had already reached the apex of the Sea Realm. What was certain was that once the disturbance in the Serpent God Hall spread, Jinshan's name would spread across the entire Sea Realm. He would become a peak expert of the Sea Realm in a single stroke. The 6 Hall elders of the Serpent God Hall frowned. They could obviously tell that Jianshan was tormenting the 4 divine generals, but they had an agreement with Jianshan that they could not interfere with the matters between them. As a result, even though they could not bear to see the mighty 4 divine generals of the Serpent God Hall suffer from Jianshan's merciless torture, there was nothing they could do. The Emperor armament turned into a blur as it stabbed at the 4 divine generals again and again, causing their wounds to rapidly increase. Under Jinshan's storm-like attacks, the 4 divine generals could not fight back at all. If it were not for the fact that Jianshan did not want to kill them so quickly, they probably would have died long ago. The 4 divine generals rapidly retreated. They retreated again and again before separating in the end. Only then did they break free from Jianshan. However, only 3 of them managed to break free from Jianshan, while the remaining one was being chased by Jianshan. This person was the divine general who had taken away his golden silk armor. Jianshan, even if I die here today, I won't let you have an easy time. The immortal general who was being chased by Jianshan revealed a furious look in his eyes. Soon after that, his body began to expand rapidly, breaking his clothes. In a blink of an eye, he turned into a 300 long flood dragon. The golden silk armor on his body was also bulging, but it didn't shatter. The golden silk armor that had been stretched countless times seemed to have become a belt, tightly wrapping around the flood dragon's upper body, but it couldn't hide its powerful body at all. Roar! The flood dragon roared at the sky, and a thick layer of bloody light emitted from his body. With the appearance of this bloody light, the flood dragon's aura also increased at an unbelievable speed, quickly breaking through the Holy Emperor 5th firmament and reaching the Holy Emperor 6th firmament. Jinshan's eyes narrowed. He immediately understood that the other party was using a secret technique to temporarily increase his strength. Using this secret technique would definitely cause serious damage to the caster. Soon after, the flood dragon began to chant in a hoarse and incomprehensible manner. It became louder and louder, echoing through the sky as if it was singing. The 6 Hall elders watching from afar all became rather sunken. One of them could not help but say, "This is the fury of the flood dragon god. He's actually using a secret technique like this. Does he not know the severe consequences of doing this?" The fury of the flood dragon god was the most powerful secret technique of the Sea Realm flood dragons. Only those who had reached the level of a holy emperor could learn it. The fury of the flood dragon god was similar to the forbidden technique of the Radiant Saint Master Union on the Tianyuan continent, God's Descent. However, it was not as terrifying as God's Descent. However, the price to use it was rather great. Not only would their strength fall by an entire level, making future breakthroughs even more difficult, but it would also consume a large amount of the power of their souls and the essence of the flood dragon god. The fury of the flood dragon god had always been a forbidden technique of the flood dragon god. Unless they had no other choice, no one dared to use it so easily. However, the divine general had clearly been forced into a corner by Jianshan, which was why he had no choice but to use it. Fury of the flood dragon god. The serpent dragon transformed from a divine general roared at the sky. Immediately, the power of a powerful soul and the essence of a serpent surged out of the divine general's body, surging into the sky. Clouds immediately began to churn in the sky. A large swathe of dark clouds suddenly appeared, blotting out the sun. At that moment, the entire world seemed to darken. Muffled roars could be heard coming from the thick dark clouds. The dark clouds kept rolling, as if there really was a flood dragon shuttling through them. Suddenly, a huge claw of a flood dragon extended from the dark clouds, reaching toward Jianshan with lightning-like speed. The claw seemed to be completely condensed from the dark clouds. The other end of the claw had actually fused with the clouds. Jianshan finally became rather stern. The power of the attack was nothing to be underestimated. He could clearly sense the endless power hidden within the claw. It was definitely a power that only a holy emperor at the 7th heavenly layer could possess, or even a peak 7th heavenly layer holy emperor. Although the attack was powerful enough to threaten Jianshan showed no fear at all. The emperor armament in his hand shone with a surging black light as he used all his strength to stab at the claw. The emperor armament and the claw violently collided, immediately erupting with a violent boom. The claw's momentum immediately slowed down. Afterward, Jianshan did not hesitate at all. He stabbed out several more times, holding nothing back at all. He used his full strength. After a few sword strikes, the huge dragon claw suddenly collapsed, turning into a vast amount of chi of heaven and earth and dissipating. With the destruction of the serpent dragon's wrath, the divine general who had used the secret technique vomited a large mouthful of blood. He was immediately unable to maintain his serpent dragon form, falling out of the sky as a human. He was haggard. It's a pity that he only comprehended the first layer of the technique. If he could reach the 3rd layer and conjure a true serpent god, the outcome today would have been completely different. Although he wouldn't have been able to harm Jianshan under the protection of the Divine Hall, he would have been able to protect himself at the very least, side a Hall Elder of the Serpent God Hall. On the other side, Jianshan charged toward the Divine General who had stolen his armor with surging killing intent. He arrived before the Divine General and directly ripped off the armor before swinging his sword at the Divine General's head. He did not show any mercy. Third brother. The other 3 heavily injured Divine Generals cried out when they saw this. They charged over without any regard for their own safety in an attempt to save the Divine General who was in danger. However, how could they compare to Jianshan's sword? With a crack, the Divine General's head was lopped off from his neck by Jianshan. Chapter 960. From today onwards, the 4 Divine Generals of the Serpent God Hall will cease to exist. Jianshan sneered. The Emperor armament in his hand immediately stabbed toward the head as a black streak of light. He wanted to disperse the soul within the head. At this moment, a supreme force shot over from nearby, viciously striking Jianshan's Emperor armament. At this crucial moment, a Hall Elder of the Serpent God Hall took action. With an explosion of energy, a loud explosion rang out. Jianshan's attack toward the Divine General's head was immediately knocked off course. At the same time, the top of the Divine General's head suddenly exploded. A soul flew out, flying toward the Hall Elders with lightning-like speed. Immediately, one of the Hall Elders pulled out a bottle that shone with a faint blue light from his space ring and sucked away the soul that had escaped into it. Jianshan immediately became furious when he saw how the Divine General that was about to die to his sword had been saved by a Hall Elder so easily. He suddenly turned his head and glared at the Hall Elder who had taken action. He growled, "Hall Elder, have you forgotten our agreement so quickly? Are the respected Hall Elders of the Serpent God Hall a bunch of dishonest people?" Jianshan's voice was filled with mockery. The Hall Elders looked at each other. A sliver of helplessness appeared in their eyes. The 4 Divine Generals were 16th-star experts after all, the peak power of the Serpent God Hall. They were unwilling to just watch such experts die right before their eyes. Jianshan, you've already won the battle against the 4 Divine Generals. The 4 Divine Generals of our Serpent God Hall are not your opponent. A Hall Elder gently sighed. Jianshan's face paled. He coldly said, "I've said it before. I want to fight the 4 Divine Generals to the death. You can't interfere with the matters between us. I don't want victory or defeat, but the names of the 4 Divine Generals." Killing intent flickered in Jianshan's eyes. With that, he charged toward the other 3 Divine Generals. The 3 Divine Generals had personally witnessed Jianshan destroy the wrath of the Serpent God, which had a great impact on their minds. They had lost the courage to fight long ago, so they could not help but show fear when they saw Jianshan charge toward them. Although the 4 Divine Generals all grasped the forbidden technique, their comprehension of the wrath of the Serpent God remained at the first level. They could only conjure a single claw, so it was impossible for them to harm Jianshan. Moreover, They would become heavily injured and their strength would decline. It was not worth it. Hall elders, save us, the divine general called out. A divine general began to cry for help. The three of them knew that their survival depended on whether the divine hall elders would save them. Sigh. A hall elder gently sighed. With a single movement, he appeared before the three divine generals, blocking Jinshin's path. Jinshin's face changed slightly, and his charge came to a halt. With a thought, the divine hall of the 8 wastelands that hovered above them like a dark cloud suddenly sank. It began to fall heavily, hovering 20 meters above Jinshin's head. The expressions of the hall elders and the experts of the Serpent God Hall all changed when they saw the divine hall of the 8 wastelands above them. They became rather stern. They had all experienced the power of the divine hall of the 8 wastelands. Although the divine hall of the 8 wastelands did not pose much of a threat to them outside, if the divine hall of the 8 wastelands wanted to deal with them like before, they would end up in horrible shape. With the protection of the divine hall of the 8 wastelands, Jinshin was filled with confidence. He stared at the hall elder in front of him coldly and said with a heavy voice, "Hall elder, may I ask what the meaning of this is?" Jinshin had already secretly made preparations to enter the divine hall of the 8 wastelands at any time. Without the protection of the divine hall of the 8 wastelands, he was not the opponent of a hall elder. Jinshin, you've already forced us into such a horrible state. You've recovered all the dignity you've lost back then, so you must have vented all your anger. Why don't we both take a step back and stop here? Moreover, my Serpent God Hall will never make trouble for you again in the future, the hall elders said tactfully. It was more than enough to demonstrate just how much Jinshin had forced the Serpent God Hall into by making a hall elder speak to a junior in such a tactful manner. Unfortunately, Jinshin did not appreciate the kindness at all. He would never let the matter rest just because of a few words from a hall elder in the past, because he had used up 500 years of his lifespan to use God's descent to deal with the experts who had hunted him down. Jinshin flew into the divine hall of the 8 wastelands, and a loud but dignified voice rang out from within. I, Jinshin, will definitely take the lives of the 4 divine generals. Hall elders, since you've broken the agreement, don't blame me for not giving your Serpent God Hall any face. Today, I will smash your floating divine hall into the ground. Jinshin, don't you dare. The faces of the hall elders changed drastically as they yelled out. Jinshin acted as soon as he said that. He immediately controlled the divine hall of the 8 wastelands to fly high into the air, directly above the divine hall of the Serpent God Hall. Afterwards, he viciously smashed it down. At this moment, an extremely terrifying presence appeared from the Serpent God Hall. It was accompanied by surging fury and terrifying killing intent. Along with the appearance of this incomparably terrifying aura, the world's chi quieted down in an instant, as if it was afraid. Jinshin, who was in the divine hall of the 8 wastelands, sensed an extremely powerful presence lock onto the entire divine hall. It actually slowed down the divine hall's descent. The Holy Emperor of the Serpent God Hall. Jinshin was surprised. He immediately realized that the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple was about to secretly take action. It's the Hall Master. Please take action and destroy the divine hall of the 8 wastelands. The appearance of the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple's presence immediately roused the morale of the people of the Serpent God Hall. They immediately knelt in the air and pleaded, Jinshin, don't go too far. A heavy voice broke through the obstruction of the divine hall of the 8 wastelands, clearly reaching Jinshin's ears. It was not difficult to tell that the speaker was a middle-aged man. That's the voice of the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple. Jinshin immediately guessed the identity of the speaker. Apart from the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple who had reached the level of the Holy Emperor, he could not think of anyone else with such terrifying strength. Jinshin, enough is enough. You can stop, Jinshin called out. Another voice rang out in Jinshin's head. It was gentle and cold. It was the voice of the Hall Master of the Poseidon Hall. The divine hall of the 8 wastelands gradually came to a stop. In the end, it did not hit the supreme divine hall of the Serpent God Hall. Jianshun appeared from the divine hall and said, "Hall elders, I'll leave the lives of the 4 divine generals to you for now, but it's best if you don't interfere with the matters between me and Li Fengxing." With that, Jianshun immediately flew toward Li Fengxing with the Emperor armament in his hand. Li Fengxing's expression changed slightly. He glanced at the hall elders who did not plan on helping him, and without any hesitation, he immediately rose into the air and flew into the sky. Li Fengxing was one of the people who had killed the Grand Elder of the Turtle Clan, so Jianshun would never let him go no matter what. He immediately pursued and vanished into the sky with Li Fengxing very soon. The two of them moved very quickly, approaching the protective barrier around the sea realm in the blink of an eye. Li Fengxing did not linger at all, directly passing through the barrier and leaving the sea realm. He then turned around and laughed aloud at Jianshun. "I've stayed in the sea realm for long enough, so it's time for me to leave. Jianshun, if you want to kill me, come find me on the Beast God continent. I'll be waiting for you there." With that, Li Fengxing directly tore space apart and created a space gate. He left through the space gate. The sea realm was enveloped by the protective barrier, which was equivalent to an independent world. It was impossible for Holy Emperor experts to rip open a space gate here, but there was no such restriction outside the protective barrier. Jianshun stopped at the edge of the barrier. He stared at Li Fengxing, who had already vanished, with a sunken face, and coldly said, "The Beast God continent. I, Jianshun, will go there sooner or later. I like to see where you can run then." In the end, Jianshun failed to catch up with Li Fengxing. The protective barrier of the sea realm could only stop all foreign Holy Emperor experts from entering the sea realm. If any foreign Holy Emperor experts left the barrier, they would obviously not be stopped. Jianshun descended from the sky and stood on the divine hall of the 8 wastelands. He coldly said, "I, Jianshun, will take the lives of the 4 divine generals no matter what. People of the Serpent God Hall, listen up. I, Jianshun, will return in the future. At that time, even your hall elders won't be able to stop me." Jianshun left with the divine hall of the 8 wastelands, leaving behind the experts of the Serpent God Hall with ugly expressions. None of them said anything. Although Jianshun did not manage to kill the 4 divine generals as he wished, he had taken back the golden threaded armor in his trip to the Serpent God Hall. At the same time, he had turned the Serpent God Hall upside down, causing them to lose their dignity. Soon after Jianshun left with the divine hall of the 8 wastelands, several hall elders of the Heaven Spirit Hall gathered in the discussion hall in the central divine hall. They all stood in a line below politely. Before the hall elders of the Heaven's Spirit Hall, an extremely blurry person sat on a throne. It was impossible to make out his appearance. You must know about what happened in the Serpent God Hall. Jianshun is currently hurrying toward our Heaven's Spirit Hall. He has the protection of the 8 Wastelands Divine Hall. Aside from me, none of you can break through the 8 Wastelands Divine Hall, even if you work together. Jianshun also has the support of Hall Master Poseidon. If I take action, I'll definitely be kept busy by Hall Master Poseidon. As a result, you must remember not to anger him when Jianshun arrives. Satisfy him as much as you can, said the figure on the throne. Hall Master, if he wants to take the lives of the 3 disciplinary elders, what should we do? A hall elder asked politely. You could do whatever you want. It's best if you don't offend Jianshun. Jianshun's growth rate is just too fast. He went from the 14th star to the 16th star in just a few short years. A person with such talent is definitely extraordinary. Moreover, he can use the Emperor armament left behind by the human Emperor, so I've determined that he's not someone from the Sea Realm. He's probably a human from the Tian Yuan continent. If possible, I will try my best to rope him in. Once he matures and becomes an Emperor, he might be of great assistance to me. He can help me achieve my greatest wish, said the Hall Master of the Heaven Spirit Hall, indifferently. Yes, Temple Master. We know what to do. The Temple Elders replied in unison. Also, don't we have many humans and magical beasts in the Sea Realm? Send some people to the Tian Yuan continent to investigate Jianshun's background, said the Hall Master. Chapter 9:61. Jianshin steered the 8 Wastelands Divine Hall away from the supreme Divine Hall of the Serpent God Hall. Only after confirming that the experts of the Serpent God Hall would not chase after him did he leave the Divine Hall of the 8 Wastelands. Afterward, he flew directly to the Heaven's Spirit Hall. Although the 8 Wastelands Divine Hall could fly as well, it was nowhere near as fast as Jianshin. In order to reach the Heaven's Spirit Hall in the shortest amount of time, Jianshin chose to travel on his own. Even though that was the case, the Divine Hall of the 8 Wastelands was still in Jianshin's hands. If an Elder of the Serpent God Hall tried to attack him from behind, he would be able to enter the Divine Hall of the 8 Wastelands in time and fend them off with the power of the Divine Hall. After all, Jianshin had humiliated the Serpent God Hall this time. No one could say for sure whether or not the experts of the Serpent God Hall would still secretly follow him and launch a sneak attack when he was unprepared. Jianshin flew cautiously. The rest of the journey was peaceful. Very soon, he left the territory of the Serpent God Hall and entered the Heaven's Spirit Hall. Nothing out of the ordinary happened. After traveling for some time, Jianshin finally arrived outside the Divine Hall of the Heaven Spirit Hall. However, when he arrived, the experts of the Heaven Spirit Hall had already gathered outside the Divine Hall under the lead of a few elders. They had been waiting for him calmly for quite some time. "You must be warrior Jianshin." A hall elder of the Heaven Spirit Hall clasped his hands at Jianshin. He spoke calmly without any arrogance at all. Jianshin hovered in the air with the Divine Hall of the 8 Wastelands in his left hand. He glanced at everyone coldly and said, "That's right. I am Jianshin. It looks like your Heaven Spirit Hall has received the news long ago, so you've been waiting for my arrival solemnly." The hall elder smiled. "Warrior Jianshin, we've already guessed why you've come. You must have come because of the matter from a few years ago. Since you've guessed it, there's no need for me to waste my breath on you. Hand over the 3 disciplinary elders, the Emperor and Zhou Yunzi, who hunted me down back then," Jianshin said coldly. The hall elder waved his hand and called out to the people behind him, "Bring them here." Very soon, 2 young men who seemed to be in their 30s were tied up, were brought to the hall elder of the Wastelands. Their appearances were identical, so it was impossible to tell who was who. They were, and the 2 of them were the same. Emperor Jianshin. Emperor Zhou Yunzi, Emperor Zhou Yunzi, who would have thought that you two and Emperor Zhou Zhou Yunzi and Zhou Yunzi's strength had been personally sealed by the hall elder of the Heaven Spirit Hall, so the 2 of them were no different from ordinary people right now. The 2 of them stared at the hall elder in hatred. They gritted their teeth and said, "I never thought that the mighty Heaven's Spirit Hall would do something so despicable. The 2 of us have pledged our allegiance to you for many years, serving as guest elders of the Heaven's Spirit Hall. We've done many things for you over the years, so even if we haven't done anything, we've still worked hard. Moreover, it was your hall elder who ordered us to hunt down Jianshin back then. Now that he's become stronger, your Heaven Spirit Hall tosses us out to be scapegoats. You've really been blind. If we had known earlier that your Heaven Spirit Hall was such ungrateful people, we would never have become guest elders of your Heaven Spirit Hall." The Divine Hall elder frowned slightly when he heard what the Emperor and Zhou Yunzi had to say. He barked, "Seal their mouths." Immediately, an elder stepped forward and placed a finger on their throats, depriving them of the ability to speak. Afterwards, the 2 brothers who were tied up were brought before Jianshin by a few emissaries of the Divine Hall. Jianshin could not help but frown when he saw this. He had never thought that the people of the Heaven Spirit Hall would be so easygoing, tying up 2 powerful guest elders so straightforwardly. This was completely different from what he had imagined. "Warrior Jianshin, we've already given you full authority to deal with the Zhou Tianzi and Zhou Yunzi who hunted you down in the past. You can deal with them however you want. Our Heaven Spirit Hall will not interfere," said the hall elder with a smile. "Heaven's Spirit Hall, do you want to use the 2 of them to resolve the grievances between Jianshin and your Heaven Spirit Hall?" Jianshin asked emotionlessly. "That's right. Warrior Jianshin is correct. Our Heaven's Spirit Hall does not wish to become your enemy, and what happened back then was a complete misunderstanding. Our original intentions were to invite you to our Heaven Spirit Hall as a guest, but we never thought that what happened afterwards would be completely out of our control, which led to a series of misunderstandings between us. I represent the Heaven's Spirit Hall in offering our sincerest apologies to Warrior Jinshin. I hope that Warrior can forgive us for the wrong decision we made back then, the Hall Elder said sincerely. He had not seemed to be faking it at all. Jinshin stared closely at the Hall Elders of the Heaven's Spirit Hall as the light in his eyes flickered. The development of the situation had completely exceeded his expectations. Originally, he thought that he would have to engage in a great battle with the Heaven Spirit Hall to resolve the matter like he did with the Serpent God Hall. However, he had never thought that the Heaven Spirit Hall, one of the 3 great halls of the Sea Realm, would take the initiative to apologize to him. He found this rather unbelievable. After a moment of hesitation, the divine hall of the 8 wastelands in Jinshin's left hand suddenly expanded. He threw the powerless Zhou Yunzi and Zhou Yunzi into the divine hall before saying to the hall elder, "Just the 2 of them are nowhere near enough to resolve the grievances from back then." The hall elders seemed to know that Jinshin would say something like that. Their faces did not change at all, and one of them said, "Invite the 3 disciplinary elders over." Very soon, the 3 disciplinary elders were invited out of the divine hall. They were all emotionless, making it impossible to tell what they were feeling. "Warrior Jinshin, the 3 disciplinary elders have arrived. Why don't I get the 3 of them to apologize to you, Warrior Jinshin? Then we can forget about the grievances between us in the past," the hall elders said in a negotiating tone. "Apologize? It won't be that easy." Jinshin gently shook his head. Although the Heaven Spirit Hall was extremely amiable, the incident of him being hunted down back then was not something that could be resolved with just an apology. "Warrior Jinshin, may I ask what you want in order for you to let this matter go?" A hall elder said emotionlessly. He had already become rather angry inside. Their Heaven Spirit Hall was one of the 3 great halls, yet they had never spoken to anyone so nicely in all these years. Jinshin was the first one. "There's only one way to resolve this. I want to personally slay the 3 of them to avenge the incident of me being hunted down back then," Jinshin said sternly. He did not back down at all. "Jinshin, you've gone too far." The expressions of the hall elders changed, and one of them could not help but cry out. His face was filled with anger. The 3 disciplinary elders were the upper echelon of the Heaven Spirit Hall. They were the true core members of the Heaven's Spirit Hall. Their statuses were incomparable to the 2 emperors because the 2 emperors were outsiders after all, so they could be tossed aside as they wished. However, the 3 disciplinary elders could not be lost. Jinshin's face sank. The divine hall of the 8 wastelands immediately flew out of his hand and suddenly enlarged above his head. At the same time, the Emperor armament appeared in his right hand. It shone with a surging black light as a destructive presence flooded the surroundings, enveloping the surroundings. "Since you won't comply, we can only fight." Jinshin's voice was icy cold as killing intent surged in his eyes. He had already made his preparations for battle. He definitely would not let the Heaven Spirit Hall off just because they had shown a friendly attitude. The faces of the hall elders from the Heaven Spirit Hall became rather ugly. However, none of them planned on fighting Jinshin. Ignoring the fact that Jinshin was protected by the Divine Hall, they were unable to harm him at all. If they really fought, it was extremely likely that their relationship with Jinshin would become hostile. That would be going against the orders the Hall Master of the Heaven Spirit Hall had given them. Whatever. Jinshin, our Heaven Spirit Hall will leave the 3 disciplinary elders for you to deal with, a hall elder said helplessly. The 3 disciplinary elders' faces darkened when they heard that. Their eyes became hollow and filled with despair. The 3 disciplinary elders arrived 20 meters away from Jinshin at the same time. They said proudly, "Jinshin, we're right here. If you want to kill us, do as you please." There was no fear on their faces at all. They did not fear death at all. The 3 of them clearly knew that the Heaven Spirit Hall had already abandoned them, but they did not resent it at all. After all, their loyalty was unquestionable since they could become disciplinary elders of the Heaven Spirit Hall. Jianshan, the three disciplinary elders are important members of our Heaven's Spirit Hall. We don't want to just watch them die here. So why don't you let the three disciplinary elders swear loyalty to you and spare their lives? At this moment, an old voice rang out in Jinshan's head. Jinshan's eyes lit up with that. He glanced at the hall elders before saying to the three disciplinary elders, "I'll give you a chance to live right now. Are you willing to swear loyalty to me?" Chapter 962. Jinshan was immediately filled with indescribable joy when he heard that the three disciplinary elders had actually agreed to serve him. The three disciplinary elders before him were all supreme experts at the sixth heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor. Every single one of them was a supreme expert that could hold their own. Once Jinshan obtained these three powerful subordinates, the strength of his forces would increase by a lot. It was not as if Jinshan had never thought about subduing the three disciplinary elders and the four divine generals before, but the thought had only crossed his mind for a moment before he gave up on it. This was because he understood that whether it was the four divine generals of the Serpent God Hall or the three disciplinary elders of the Heaven Spirit Hall, they were all people of great authority. Their statuses were great, so they naturally had inviolable dignity. Subduing them and making them swear loyalty to him was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. The reason why the three disciplinary elders had agreed so readily was all because of the secret assistance of the hall elders of the Heaven Spirit Hall. If it were not for the hall elders' persuasion, the three disciplinary elders would rather die than submit. Disciplinary elders, please swear a blood oath using a secret technique and never betray me. Jinshan pretended to be calm as he said to the three disciplinary elders. The three disciplinary elders clenched their teeth and swore a blood oath using a secret technique. They used their essence blood to draw an ancient contract and passed it to Jinshan. With the ancient contract, Jinshan basically held the power to kill the three disciplinary elders. Warrior Jinshan, are you satisfied with this outcome? A hall elder asked emotionlessly. He was rather heavy-hearted. Jinshan was obviously extremely satisfied after obtaining the loyalty of 3/6 heavenly layer experts from the Holy Emperor. However, he did not show any joy on the surface. He said calmly, "Since your Heaven Spirit Hall is so sincere, I, Jinshan, will naturally not be petty. Let's forget about our past grievances." After resolving his grievances with the Heaven's Spirit Hall, Jinshan left with the three disciplinary elders. He directly headed for the territory of the Poseidon Hall. The three disciplinary elders' positions in the Heaven Spirit Hall had been revoked by the hall elders as well. The three of them were now free people, able to enter and leave the three territories of the sea realm as they pleased. The experts of the Heaven Spirit Hall did not disperse for a long time after Jinshan left with the three disciplinary elders. They all stood outside the Divine Hall and stared in the direction that Jinshan and Beelzebub had disappeared in. They were extremely dejected. The Divine Hall elders were of the same age as the three law-enforcing elders. They had been friends with the three law-enforcing elders for thousands of years. They were as close as brothers. The departure of the three law-enforcing elders naturally had some influence on them. The other elders and emissaries of the Heaven Spirit Hall were all dejected and dispirited. They simply could not understand why the esteemed hall elders had made such a decision. The Heaven Spirit Hall, one of the three great halls of the sea realm, was actually afraid of a junior. Not only did they not dare to fight him, but they had even sent three respected disciplinary elders to quell his anger. This left them all confused and in disbelief. This was because this did not seem like the style of the Heaven Spirit Hall at all. Let's return. Remember, what happened today is forbidden from being leaked. At the same time, no one is allowed to find Jinshan for revenge. Violators will be executed according to the highest punishment, a hall elder said with a heavy voice. Everyone's necks could not help but shrink when they heard the words executed according to the highest punishment. Fear filled their eyes. Jinshan flew through the air with the three disciplinary elders. The four of them moved very quickly, shooting through the sky like four streaks of light, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Elders, May I ask how I should address you? Jianshun faintly smiled as he turned to the three disciplinary elders. Although the three disciplinary elders had hunted him down in the past, they were all on his side now. As a result, Jianshun had let go of the prejudice he had in the past. Lan Jing, Xianpian, Mokas, the three disciplinary elders called out one by one. The three of them were old men in their 70s. They wore simple robes and possessed extremely ordinary appearances. It was very difficult to tell that they were actually experts at the sixth heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor from their appearances. The three disciplinary elders clearly still could not let go of the fact that they had become Jianshun's followers. The three of them wore sunken faces along the way. They did not say anything else aside from announcing their names. The four of them said nothing along the way. They directly returned to the Turtle Clan under Jianshun's lead. Basically, all the experts of the Turtle Clan had gone out to fight under Tai Do's lead, forcefully reclaiming the crystal mines that had been stolen in the past. As a result, there were very few people in the Turtle Clan. Greetings to the ruler. Greetings to the ruler. As soon as Jianshun returned to the Turtle Clan, all the members of the Turtle Clan politely knelt down and bowed. They looked at Jianshun with respect and admiration from the bottom of their hearts. Jianshun arranged the three disciplinary elders' residences before making his way to his secret room and entering the artifact space. Newbies was still studying the Tion-level battle, Saint technique in the artifact space, completely forgetting the time. Xiaowang was also cultivating the cultivation method left behind by the Emperor of the Eight Wastelands that Jianshun had given him. Jianshun did not disturb the two of them. He made his way into the depths of the palace and arrived before a 30-meter-tall door in the end. Rumble. The door slowly opened under the control of the artifact spirit. As soon as a crack appeared on the door, a tremendous pressure immediately appeared from within the hall. The pressure was not powerful enough to Jianshun, but the presence that filled it was extremely dense. It was actually countless times denser than the presence from the serpent dragon that Jianshun had seen in the supreme divine hall of the serpent god hall. As the door opened, an auspicious white light suddenly shone out, illuminating the entire hall, making the originally dark hall brighten up in an instant. The source of the white light was actually a huge white tiger. The white tiger lay on the ground with its eyes closed. It was 30 meters long and covered in snow-white fur. Every single strand of hair shone with a peaceful white light. On its back, two huge wings were unfurled, unconsciously flapping slowly in the air. In the past few years, the white tiger had always remained in the artifact space, relying on heavenly resources to increase its strength. After consuming tremendous amounts of heavenly resources, the white tiger's strength had increased so quickly that it could be described as riding a rocket. It had already broken through Class 6 and reached Class 7. Perhaps because it sensed Jianshun's arrival, the white tiger suddenly opened its eyes. When it saw Jianshun standing outside the door, its eyes immediately lit up. It produced an excited roar and leapt towards Jianshun. In the air, the white tiger's huge body rapidly shrank. By the time it landed on Jianshun's shoulder, its huge body had shrunk to the size of a kitten. Whoa! The white tiger growled as it held Jianshun's head tightly with its front paws. It constantly bit at Jianshun's hair, as if complaining about why Jianshun had not come to see it in so long. Seeing that the little white tiger was still so mischievous, Jianshun couldn't help but smile from the bottom of his heart. He reached out and took the little white tiger from his shoulder, placing it in his arms as he gently stroked its furry head. Although the white tiger had already become a magical beast of the 7th rank, its age was still there. Although its intelligence had increased a lot, it still had the temperament of a child. A magical beast of the 7th rank can take human form. White tiger, I wonder if you could take human form now. Jianshun asked the white tiger in his arms in a low voice. The white tiger could completely understand Jianshun's words. Its furry little head immediately shook, and its bright little eyes were filled with confusion. Clearly, it did not know why it could not take human form. Jianshun said with a smile, "Your original form is that of the winged tiger, an ancient mythological beast. It is not at the same level as ordinary magical beasts. Perhaps the reason why you are unable to take human form now is because of your mythological beast form. When your strength increases in the future, you will be able to take human form sooner or later. With that, Jinshin's face changed. He felt that the barrier he had cast down outside the room had been touched by someone. He immediately comforted the white tiger before leaving the artifact space. Walking out of the room, he saw a saint ruler of the turtle clan standing there with a pale face. Jinshin could tell with a single glance that the saint ruler had suffered heavy internal injuries. Greetings to the ruler. I had no other choice but to enter seclusion, so please punish me. The saint ruler of the turtle clan immediately knelt on the ground and politely said. Jinshin sternly looked at him and asked, "What happened? What's with your injuries?" "Ruler, we were obstructed by enemy experts when we tried to subdue the crystal mine that was stolen back then. Many people of our turtle clan were injured because of this. Even the ancestor of the Taion clan, Tai-Do, was injured by 2 experts who were on par with him," the saint ruler of the turtle clan said with a heavy voice. His complexion was very ugly. Jinshin's face sank when he heard that. He bellowed, "How dare you? Immediately gather all the elders and experts of the Taion clan. Let's all go to the discussion hall." "Yes, ruler." Jinshin sat on the throne emotionlessly in the discussion hall. All the experts of the turtle clan and the people of the Taion clan had gathered below him. They all stood there silently. No one said anything, causing the atmosphere in the hall to become rather oppressive. Among these people, almost half of them had pale faces. It was obvious that they had suffered heavy injuries. Jinshin glanced past everyone's faces and said with a heavy voice, "Tai-Do, tell me about the strength of the enemy." Tai-Do took a step forward and said, "Ruler, the enemy is very powerful. They're a famed first-rate clan in the territory of our Poseidon Hall. They have 2 16-star experts who are on par with me. There's also a 15-star expert and many 14-star experts. They've completely surpassed us." "All right, I understand," Jinshin gently replied before remaining silent on the throne. Before long, 3 old men in cloth clothes walked in side by side from outside the hall. They held their heads high and walked in an orderly manner. They were neither hurried nor impatient. They did not even glance at the experts gathered in the hall and directly ignored them. The 3 of them were the 3 disciplinary elders of the Heaven Spirit Hall. As the 3 of them entered, the experts in the hall who did not know who they were became suspicious. They all began to guess who they were. The 3 law-enforcing elders walked straight to the front of the group before stopping. They all stared at Jinshin emotionlessly. One of them asked, "Jinshin, why have you called the 3 of us here?" The disciplinary elders spoke to Jinshin as equals. They did not show any respect at all. Chapter 963. Jinshin calmly stared at the 3 disciplinary elders and said, "Elders, I have a mission for you right now. I hope the 3 of you can cooperate with the experts of the Turtle Clan to complete this mission." The experts of the Turtle Clan and Taihong Clan were all secretly surprised when they heard that Jinshin wanted the 3 mysterious old men to help him deal with the enemy clans. All of them could not help but guess at the strength of the 3 disciplinary elders. However, they had never imagined that the 3 ordinary old men would actually be 16-star experts. Only Tai-Do, who was at the 5th heavenly layer of Saint King and was only slightly stronger than the 3 disciplinary elders, sensed something. He could vaguely sense the 3 disciplinary elders' strength. At the same time, Tai-Do could vaguely sense a pressure from the 3 disciplinary elders, which left him extremely shocked. He really could not understand where the ruler of the Turtle Clan had found 3 such terrifying experts. "What do you want the 3 of us to do?" Xin Pian asked nonchalantly. Jinshin did not care about the tone of the 3 disciplinary elders. He said to Tai-Do, "Tai-Do, these 3 elders are all supreme experts who are no weaker than you. Take the 3 of them to the enemy clans right now. You must subdue the crystal mine that they stole from us in the past with lightning speed." "Yes, ruler." Tai-Do's face was filled with excitement. With the help of 3 elders who were stronger than him, his side strength was far greater than the enemy's. This made him feel incomparably confident. This time, I will definitely teach them a vicious lesson and regain my dignity, Taido swore inside. Lanjing, Xianpian, Mokas, and Taido led the experts of the Turtle Clan and Taihong Clan out of the Turtle Clan in an aggressive manner. They headed to the enemy clans for revenge. Jianshun did not enter the artifact space after they left. Instead, he went to a beautiful mountain behind the Turtle Clan with the two attendants. In the end, he stopped before a huge tomb beside a pool of water. The tomb was extremely large and majestic. It was 100 meters wide and 30 meters tall. A huge tombstone stood at the front of the tomb. The words "Tomb of the Grand Elder of the Turtle Clan" were written forcefully on the tombstone. This was where the Grand Elder of the Turtle Clan rested. Jianshin's heart became heavy after arriving here. He stood before the huge tombstone that was 300 meters tall and stared at the words on the tombstone in a daze. In a daze, he seemed to see the hunched figure of the Grand Elder of the Turtle Clan. His kind and concerned face seemed to see the Grand Elder smiling at him as he silently said those words. His face was filled with joy. "Grand Elder," Jianshin subconsciously murmured. His face was filled with pain. In the past, the Grand Elder of the Turtle Clan had died in order to save him. He had reverted back to his original form and trapped the pursuing Zhou Tianzi, Zhou Yunzi, and Li Fengxing in his shell, enduring the fierce attacks of the three supreme experts. In the end, he had been obliterated by the Tian-level sane techniques of the Zhou Tianzi and Zhou Yunzi. His shell had shattered into countless pieces, and even his body had been destroyed. He had died such a horrible death that even Class 7 Radiant Saint Masters could not save him. If it were not for the Grand Elder who had risked his life to keep the three experts busy, buying precious time for Jianshin, Jianshin probably would have died to the three of them before Elder Hong could save him. After all, back then, he was completely powerless against the Great Zhou Emperor and the other two super experts. The Grand Elder risking his life to save him had deeply touched Jianshin's heart. It had an extremely great impact on Jianshin. Aside from gratitude, Jianshin also felt deep guilt and self-blame towards the Grand Elder of the Turtle Clan. Now that the Grand Elder was dead, Jianshin had repaid all the kindness the Grand Elder had shown him and all the guilt he felt towards the Grand Elder to the Turtle Clan. He could still clearly remember that the Grand Elders had not dispersed after his death. He was completely concerned about the future of the Turtle Clan. He would complete the Grand Elder's final wish and revive the Turtle Clan so that they could return to their former glory. He would repay the Grand Elder for saving his life and allow the Grand Elder's soul to rest in peace. Jianshin stood before the huge tombstone in a daze as he stared at it blankly. He had completely forgotten about the time. The two Heaven Saint Masters behind him stood there quietly. They did not make any noise at all, afraid of disturbing the ruler they revered and respected. Wild winds whistled through the sky, causing Jianshin's white robes to rustle as his hair danced in the wind. Unknowingly, Jianshin had already stood before the tombstone for several days. At this moment, an expert of the Turtle Clan ran up from below the mountain. He knelt down on one knee 20 meters away and bowed. "Ruler, Taido and the three elders have returned victorious. They have successfully reclaimed the crystal mine that was stolen from them all those years ago. Pass down my orders. All direct descendants of the Turtle Clan and all elders are to gather here." Jianshin's cold voice rang out. "As you command, Your Majesty." The expert from the Turtle Clan respectfully replied before running down the mountain with lightning speed. Soon, the heavy sound of a bugle horn rang out from the Turtle Clan in the distance. All the elders led a large group of clansmen up the mountain. They moved very quickly and arrived before the tombstone of the Grand Elder before long. "We greet the ruler." Everyone knelt down together as they called out with a deafening cry. Their movements were uniform without any mess. Jianshin's prestige in the Turtle Clan grew higher and higher. He had already gained everyone's respect. This was because not only had the Turtle Clan's strength and status increased by a lot after his arrival, but they had also reclaimed the crystal mines one by one. All the clansmen of the Turtle Clan could sense that the time for them to return to their former glory had come. Jianshan released the tied-up Zhou Tianzi and Zhou Yunzi from the divine hall of the Eight Wastelands. Their strength had been sealed by the Hall Elders of the Heaven's Spirit Hall, so they were no different from ordinary people. They could not resist at all. Jianshan, why don't you release us, or we'll definitely teach you a lesson once we break free from the seal. The two of them yelled at Jianshan as soon as they emerged from the divine hall. Jianshan coldly stared at the two of them as killing intent surged in his heart. He coldly said, "If the seal personally cast down by the Hall Elders of the Heaven Spirit Hall could be broken so easily, then the title of Hall Elder would be undeserved." The Emperor's and Zhou Yunzi's expressions changed slightly. Their gazes swept across the huge tombstone before them, and their faces immediately turned somewhat gloomy. The two of them had slain the Grand Elder of the Turtle Clan with their Tian-level saint techniques. Yet now that Jianshan had actually brought them to the Grand Elder's tomb, the two of them immediately realized something. "Jianshan, what do you want to do to us?" the Emperor asked with a heavy voice. Jianshan stared at the tombstone in a daze and said with a heavy voice, "An eye for an eye. I'll use your blood to pay tribute to the Grand Elder's soul." "Jianshan, don't you dare." The Emperor and Zhou Yunzi's expressions drastically changed, but they continued to stare at Jianshan closely. Jianshan no longer spoke to the two of them. He turned to the people kneeling behind him and said, "Everyone, the two of them are the ones who killed the Grand Elder. They're both 16th star experts. Today, I will personally slay the two of them before everyone and avenge the Grand Elder." Jianshan basically roared out the last sentence. "Avenge the Grand Elder. Kill the two of them and pay tribute to the Grand Elder's soul." The people of the Turtle Clan immediately called out as they stared at the Emperor and Zhou Yunzi with eyes filled with hatred. The Emperor and Zhou Yunzi's expressions changed time and time again. Although they were supreme experts at the fifth heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor, their strength had been sealed up by a Hall Elder using a secret technique, making them as weak as prisoners. They had no power to escape under these circumstances. The light in the Emperor and Zhou Yunzi's eyes flickered. In the end, they seemed to have made a decision. Determination filled their eyes as they said, "Jianshan, as long as you let us go, we'll follow you and work for you." Jianshan looked at the two of them in disdain. The Emperor armament had already appeared in his right hand as he sneered, "I never thought that the two of you, one of the 8 great human experts, would actually have a time when you want people to submit to you. However, the two of you are the ones who killed the Grand Elder, so I will never let you go no matter what you say." Jianshan slowly raised the Emperor armament, and a surging black light immediately erupted. The two of them panicked and said in a hurry, "Jianshan, the Heaven Spirit Hall was behind everything back then. The two of us were sent by a Hall Elder to deal with you. The true enemy is the Heaven Spirit Hall. Even if you kill the two of us, you won't be able to resolve the matter. If you let us go, we'll deal with the Heaven Spirit Hall with you and avenge the Grand Elder of the Turtle Clan." The coldness in Jianshan's eyes became even colder, but he did not waver at all. He suddenly swung the Emperor armament in his hand and directly stabbed it between the two of their foreheads, wiping out their souls on the spot. The Emperor of Great Zhou and Zhou Yunzi's voices came to an abrupt halt. Red and white substances continuously flowed out from the wound between their brows. Finally, they fell into a pool of blood and were buried there. 2 Holy Emperor experts at the 5th heavenly layer had died so easily on the mountain. With their deaths, the 8 human experts of the Sea Realm became 6. Jianshan removed the 2 space rings from the Emperor and Zhou Yunzi before calling out, "Someone drain their blood and offer it to the Grand Elder's soul." Immediately, someone stepped forward and swiftly cut open a wound on the Emperor of Great Zhou and Zhou Yunzi's bodies, releasing their blood, dyeing the ground in front of the Grand Elder's tomb red. Chapter 964. With that, Qing Yishuan's slender figure gradually appeared where Jianshan was looking at. She stared at the Emperor and Zhou Yunzi lying in pools of blood without blinking. Her face was filled with shock and uncontainable shock. The Emperor and Zhou Yunzi were the 8 human experts of the Sea Realm. They were at the same level of cultivation as her, the 5th heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor. Whether it was in the Sea Realm or on the Tian Yuan continent, they were supreme experts that were rarely seen, yet 2 such experts have been slain by Jianshan so easily. The process was as simple as crushing ants, which was difficult for Qing Yishuan to accept. Her heart churned as she struggled to remain calm. Jianshan stared at Qing Yishuan calmly and emotionlessly said, "Qing Yishuan, this is an important place of my turtle clan. What are your intentions for trespassing here? State your intentions, or I can only personally chase you out." Jianshan's emotions changed slightly under the influence of the Grand Elder of the Turtle Clan. He was no longer as polite as before. A sliver of anger immediately appeared on Qing Yishuan's face when she heard Jianshan's threatening words. However, when she thought about how the Emperor and Zhou Yunzi had died to Jianshan's hands, she forcefully suppressed her anger. Qing Yishuan sucked in a deep breath and slowly calmed herself down. She then looked at Jianshan with mixed feelings and said gently, "There are some things that I want to talk to you about alone." Jianshan hesitated slightly with that, but he still nodded in the end. He said, "Come with me." Jianshan immediately flew off into the distance. Jianshan and Qing Yishuan arrived 10 kilometers away. Jianshan crossed his arms and turned his back to Qing Yishuan. He stared at the mountains in the distance in a daze and said, "Tell me, what do you want to talk to me about?" Qing Yishuan's eyes shone as she stared at Jianshan's back. She said, "I hope you can help me deal with the Tao family." The Tao family? Or one of the peak clans in the territory of the Poseidon Hall? A sliver of surprise appeared in Jianshan's eyes. Correct, it's one of the peak clans in the territory of the Poseidon Hall, the Tao family. The old patriarch of the Tao family has something that I need very much. I want you to deal with the Tao family and obtain it from me, said Qing Yishuan. The Tao family is a powerful peak clan, and I have no grievances with them. So why should I help you deal with them? Why would I offend a peak clan for no good reason? Jianshan sneered. Qing Yishuan gritted her teeth and said, "Back when I stole the map fragment of the 8 wastelands, I wanted to exchange it for that item from the old patriarch of the Tao family. Originally, I had already obtained it, but you stole it away in a despicable manner, making all my efforts go to waste. And when you entered the divine hall of the 8 wastelands with the map fragment, you benefited extremely greatly. Not only did you obtain an emperor armament, but you even obtained the divine hall of the 8 wastelands. The reason why you were able to obtain these items and possess your current strength is all thanks to me. If I had not taken the map fragment of the 8 wasteland from Ancestor, how Jia at the risk of being heavily injured? Do you really think you could contend against 15-star or even 16-star experts with your strength back then?" Jianshan thought about it and said, "Qing Yishuan, what you said does seem to make sense. However, I only managed to steal the map fragment of the 8 wastelands from you because of my own strength. At the same time, my turtle clan is currently expanding. Just recovering the crystal mine has already offended many clans and organizations. So, I won't help you deal with the Tao family at a crucial time like this. However, you can contact the other 8 masters of the human clan and ask them to assist you." Jianshan, it looks like you still don't understand the laws of survival for us outsiders in the Sea Realm. On the surface, I'm a guest elder of the Poseidon Hall and possess a certain amount of status. But if I do anything out of line in the territory of the Hall, the first people to punish me will probably be the Hall elders of the Hall. They will never allow us outsiders to run amok in their territory. Qing Yishuan's eyes stared at Jianshan as she stared at him. Qing Yishuan stared at Jianshan with shining eyes and continued, "But you're different. I can feel that your status in the Sea Goddess Hall is different from us guest elders. If you take action, the Sea Goddess Hall will never make things difficult for you." Qing Yishuan, I'll say the same thing again. I won't offend a powerful clan for something as trivial as you. Although I'm not afraid, I need to think about the people of my tribe. Farewell. With that, Jianshan turned around and left. Qing Yishuan panicked and said, "Jianshan, if you help me obtain that item, I'll agree to do 10 things within my power for you. However, Jianxun left without even looking back. Qin Yishuan's offer was not enough to tempt Jianxun at all. Qin Yishuan clenched her teeth as she watched Jianxun vanish. Her beautiful face was filled with anger, but there was also some helplessness and disappointment. Jianxun returned to the clan with the people of the Turtle Clan after the ceremony to avenge the Grand Elder. Afterward, he immediately sent out Lan Jing, Xianpian, Mochas, and Taido to lead a group of experts in the clan to continue with the plan to reclaim the crystal mines. With the assistance of the 3 disciplinary elders, the rate at which the Turtle Clan collected the crystal mines increased drastically. They recovered half of the mines that had been stolen from them all those years ago very quickly, allowing the heritage of the Turtle Clan to become even deeper. Jianxun, who watched over the Turtle Clan, finally had some free time. He could live a relaxed life now. He no longer had to run around all day and risk his life for survival. This was because he was no longer the weakling who had been chased around by 15-star experts a few years ago. Now he possessed the ability to look down on the entire Sea Realm. Jianxun could not help but begin to miss home now that he was free. Unknowingly, it had already been several years since he had arrived in the Sea Realm. He had no idea what had happened on the Tianyuan continent during those years. With the Emperor armament in hand, I can fend off peak experts at the 7th heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor. With the protection of the 8 Wastelands Divine Hall, it's difficult for anyone below the Holy Emperor to harm me. Now that I have enough strength to fend off the 10 protector clans, it's time for me to go back and take a look, Jianxun murmured as he stood in a garden. His eyes were filled with reminiscence. Now that I become a Class 7 Radiant Saint Master, I can bring the dead back to life. My parents' remains are still in Mercenary City, waiting for me to save them. There's also the White Tiger's mother, Rum Guinness. She needs me to heal her as a Class 7 Radiant Saint Master. Sai, it's time for me to go back and take a look. So many years have passed. I wonder how the Flame Mercenaries are doing. They must have become even more powerful than before under the management of you and Lian. Flame City should have been completed as well. I wonder just how great of an uproar the appearance of this city will cause on the Tianyuan continent. Jianxun strolled through the garden of the Turtle Clan as he murmured to himself. The reminiscence in his eyes became heavier and heavier, making it even harder for him to control himself. 3 days later, Jianxun left the Turtle Clan after handing over some matters. He did not take Xianpian, Lan Jing, and Mochas with him. Instead, he left them in the Turtle Clan to watch over them, just in case the clan suffered retribution from powerful enemies. Jianxun flew straight into the sky with surging emotions. He arrived at the edge of the protective barrier of the Sea Realm very soon and was about to cross it and leave. Jianxun, remember, you have to find a host for the bead within the time limit. You have to return to the Sea Realm when the worldly ebb arrives. Poseidon's voice suddenly rang out in Jianxun's head. Poseidon's figure had suddenly appeared in the faint blue barrier before him. He seemed to have completely fused with the barrier, where only a blurry figure could be seen. Jianxun solemnly nodded. Don't worry, Your Majesty. I will definitely complete your request. Poseidon continued. Jianxun, if you come across enemies you can't defeat on the Tianyuan continent, go to Mercenary City. The protective barrier of Mercenary City is extremely powerful. It will help you block enemies you cannot defeat. Jianxun was secretly shocked when he heard that. He could not help but think of Xiaoling's innocent face. He struggled to imagine that Xiaoling, who seemed like a mischievous girl, would actually be so powerful. Xiaoling was actually able to block opponents he could not defeat. Looks like Xiaoling's strength has reached the level of the Holy Emperor at the very least, Jianxun thought inside. Jianxun flew out of the protective barrier of the sea race. As soon as he emerged, he immediately submerged himself in the icy water outside the barrier. Without any hesitation, he turned into an arrow and shot upward with lightning speed. There were no clouds in the sky for thousands of miles. It was an azure blue, and there was only a golden sun that was emitting a light that no one could look directly at. It illuminated the earth, providing light between heaven and earth. The surface of the sea was calm. The deep blue water seemed to be connected to the sky, as if it had fused with the world. It was impossible to see the end of it. At this moment, the calm surface of the sea suddenly began to ripple. The water suddenly exploded, forming a large splash that shot out in all directions. It was like a blooming blue flower. At the center of the flower, a figure shot out of the water with lightning-like speed. He was extremely fast, reaching several thousand meters in the air in a single moment. He had become a black dot, even smaller than an ant. The figure was Jianshun, who had just left the sea realm. Jianshun hovered several thousand meters in the air as he slowly closed his eyes. He spread his arms as he lay in the air with an intoxicated expression, allowing the warm sunlight to fall on him. Cute sun's long-awaited warmth. How long has it been since I last felt your existence? Jianshun murmured. His voice was filled with unconcealable excitement.